back in Denver, Colorado. Working with us on the sidelines today, our colleague Solomon Wilcox. Solly?
Hey, Greg, because of the extreme temperatures here in Denver, not only will Peyton Manning wear a glove on that right hand, but this week in practice, he took the preparation to an entirely different level. He would practice with a bucket of ice water nearby. He would dip his throwing hand in that bucket of ice water, put the glove back on, and then go out to practice, all to simulate what it feels like to throw the ball with very little filling in his hand. Now, it's a testament to the detailed preparation, but it's also a testament to his concern for the extreme conditions. Let's see if he's ready for this Baltimore Ravens defense here today.
Solomon, thank you. Dan and I underwent no such preparation getting ready for today's game. That's Jacoby Jones back to receive. He has returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns this season, 1 punt for a touchdown. But at this altitude, it's doubtful whether or not he'll be able to do it.
And I think that really hurts Baltimore because he is such a weapon for them. And again, he probably will not get much of a chance here today because of the thin air.
Denver won the toss. They have deferred. So Baltimore will get their hands on the football first, and the divisional playoffs are underway. Not even close. Out of the end zone. Joe Flacco playing out his contract in Baltimore, trying to prove that he's the Ravens franchise quarterback of the future. 2 touchdown passes in last week's wild card win over the Indianapolis Colts. He knows, the Ravens know, they will have to contend with a lot of noise here today. Down it's Ray Rice, and Rice off the right side for about 5 yards. Injuries have forced plenty of shuffling on the offensive line, but Baltimore gets Pro Bowl guard Marshall Yanda back. And Flacco has talented receivers, but the Ravens will look to establish what you just saw, the run with Ray Rice. 2nd and 5. First pass of the day on the slant, that is complete. Very close to a first down to Anquan Boldin, who was held without a catch in their meeting a month ago.
And certainly no surprise that right off the bat they're going to try to get Boldin involved. And Anquan was very much looking forward to this rematch today. You're right, a receiver of that caliber, he is not used to having a goose egg show up on the scoreboard and on the scorebook.
His 10th season in the league, it was only the 2nd time in his career he had been held without a reception. First down. Straight ahead, across the 35, out to about the 37, 38-yard line. The Broncos' number 2 rated defense, Wolf and Dumerville, with 17 sacks between them. At linebacker, number 58, Von Miller, with 18 and a half, all by himself. And the secondary has the great Champ Bailey, the owner of 52 career interceptions.
Greg, very encouraging here on the first couple of first downs that the Ravens got that kind of production from Ray Rice. 2 carries already, 13 yards, but look at this, 2nd and short. That's an offensive play caller screen.
Flacco throwing over the middle, and that is incomplete. Broken up by Chris Harris, intended for Boldin.
Well, let's see if Denver comes after Joe Flacco. They're off the edge. They bring 5, but he's got good protection. He throws a very good pass. It hits the hands of Boldin, but Chris Harris was right there pulling down the arm.
Von Miller with the stop.
Well, Von Miller, hard to have a better year than he had, and look how he fights upfield, goes through the inside shoulder of Michael Orr into the backfield. Michael Orr was taking a pass set and actually inviting Von Miller upfield, and he was more than happy to accommodate it.
Trendon Holiday back for the punt. His own 10. Breaking free, right side. Gets a
major breakdown in the lane assignments for the Ravens coverage team. And that is just asking way too much to ask Sam Cook to make that tackle. And Peyton goes, I don't mind not getting an offensive series. A touchdown is a touchdown. And isn't it interesting, Greg? We talked to John Harbaugh about special teams and the role they could play for Baltimore in this game. Not negatively, but positively.
Extra point is good. Trendon Holiday returned a punt 76 yards for a touchdown during the regular season. He takes this one, 89 yards, 7-0 Denver. It has been officially called a 90-yard punt return for Trendon Holiday, the first punt return touchdown in postseason Denver Broncos history. On the Baltimore sideline, time to regroup. Jacoby Jones, hoping for a chance to do the same thing. And he'll get a chance to run this one out. He dropped it. Still looking for it inside the 5 and buried at about the 6-yard line.
Well, let's go back and look at this punt return by Holiday, and I'll tell you what he's going to see. Take a look right here. This is the lone Raven on this side of the hash marks. And watch this. Look at the lane breakdowns. Finally, another guy joins him, but too little, too late. They weren't able to get back in their proper lanes. The breakdown had already occurred, and trying to move laterally into a position to cut off the punt return guy was just late.
Bernard Pierce into the backfield. Flacco and the Ravens in a hole. And this is Pierce for a couple.
Well, Baltimore was lamenting the fact that Jacoby Jones might not even get a chance to return a kickoff. And then when they do get the opportunity, this is what happens. This bounces right off his chest. And then even when he tries to pick it up the second time, he's not able to corral the football. And geez, after a couple promising first down runs by Ray Rice, things have flipped in a hurry on the Ravens.
On 2nd and 8, Flacco throwing, and he misses his tight end, Ed Dixon, number 84.
Again, Jim Caldwell is calling the plays for the Ravens. Cam Cameron was let go back in early December, and again, I have been at this location before, backed up in your own end zone in front of these crazy fans. You can't hardly hear anything except your heartbeat.
Baltimore was just 1 out of 12 on 3rd down when they met a month ago. They are 0 for 1 today. Here's their second 3rd down attempt. Flacco going to go deep down the sideline, and it is incomplete. And penalty marker is thrown.
Tandon Doss was the intended receiver. He was being covered by Tony Carter, and Carter forced Doss out of bounds.
Pass interference. Defense number 32. Cut off. Spot foul. Automatic first down.
Bill Vinovich is our referee today.
Well, Tandon Doss, who has great speed, is just flying up the sidelines. Nothing fancy about this matter, but look at all the contact, and that is way beyond the 5 yards. That alone could have drawn a flag, and then Carter forces him out of bounds, but a little too much hand fighting on the part of Tony Carter way beyond the 5-yard zone.
Ray Rice back into the backfield. Flacco to throw again. Pulls it down, now throws, and that's complete across the 40-yard line to Anquan Bolden.
And Anquan Bolden talking it over with Wesley Woodyard, the leading tackler for Denver. And again, they just want to get Bolden involved early. He had such a good game last week against Indianapolis. 5 catches, 145 yards, and a touchdown.
That 145 yards, a franchise playoff record for receiving yardage. 2nd and 2.
of protection by the offensive line, followed up by a magnificent throw from Joe Flacco. First of all, the four-man rush, they don't get anywhere near Joe. He steps into it and drops it right onto the hands of Torrey Smith, who beats Champ Bailey, who runs away from Champ Bailey, and Champ Bailey going to his 12th Pro Bowl. But what a job up front by this revamped offensive line, and Joe Flacco delivers a perfect pass.
59-yard touchdown pass. And Joe Flacco telling us he had no intention of wearing a glove today. He does just fine without a glove on his throwing hand. The extra point is good. All kinds of action early on. 10:31 to play in the first quarter. Joe Flacco celebrating. 7-7 tie.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com. The Volkswagen Passat. That's the power of German engineering. And by State Farm. Get to a better state with a discount double check.
Back in Denver, where the weather hasn't affected big plays on either side so far, as you look at John Fox. His 11th year as a head coach, his second here in Denver. And Trendon Holiday, who already has a 90-yard punt return, now back for the kick. Holiday from the 2. And out to about the 25-yard line before he is pushed back. Let's go back to that touchdown pass.
Well, Torrey Smith and Champ Bailey are locked up right down here. But watch the safety who gets cleared. He's going to get caught up on a crossing pattern across the middle. He's going to step up, take that. By the time he can recover, he's in no position to help Bailey. But Champ Bailey is used to that. He's used to being all by himself on man coverage. Normally, it's good enough that time. Well executed by every member of the Baltimore offense.
And now here's Peyton Manning with gloves on both hands. His first offensive series. No Sean Moreno for a couple.
Well, Peyton wearing them on both hands. In the last 2 games of the season, he wore the glove on his throwing hand. And certainly, I would think that when the ball is as hard as it is in these temperatures in the teens, that's got to help taking the snap.
Manning. And that one thrown just a little bit behind Demaryius Thomas, his intended receiver. An already strong Denver offensive line gets right guard Chris Cooper back. He's missed the last 4 games. And wide receivers Thomas and Eric Decker have caught 23 of Peyton's 37 touchdown passes.
What a shot in the arm Joe Flacco gave his football team. A mishandled kickoff return gives them terrible field position, and they converted into a touchdown.
Manning now looking at a 3rd and 7. Throwing, tip, intercepted, picked off by the Ravens. Corey Graham to the end zone for the touchdown.
Well, the word that comes to mind to describe the Ravens right now is resilient. This crowd is completely quiet. Peyton Manning puts the ball right there, but talk about the old tip drill when it just gets popped up into the air. Breaking in underneath, here comes Decker. Now there was some contact early. There's no question that the Ravens got away with a little something there. You could see Decker's upper body move and kind of take a jolt from contact before the ball arrived. That doesn't matter. Down 7-0. The Ravens find themselves now with a touchdown lead.
They have come roaring back.
You could say that.
14 points for the Ravens in the last 42 seconds. John Harbaugh told us last night he would be shocked if his team didn't play well today. They lead it by a touchdown. John Fox, his team up in a hurry and then down in a hurry. Been a while since the Broncos have been behind in a football game. and Ray Lewis.
He knows there's a long way to go in this football game.
Meanwhile, Peyton Manning.
He was looking for a flag. You can see him gesturing afterwards. What the heck? Where's the laundry?
Trendon Holiday in the end zone for the kick. He'll get a chance to return this one. He will. About 5 or 6 yards deep in the end zone. Across the 15, across the 20, and out to about the 25-yard line. Let's go back. Did you see interference, Dan?
Well, when you slow it down in slow motion, you can certainly see. Here's Decker. Watch him come across. Shockey Brown, number 23, the guy there at the top of the screen. He's going to come in, and he's going to pull down Decker's left arm before the ball gets there. Now we're watching it in very slow motion. The officiating crew calls that a bang-bang play, that it was boom-boom, and that is very tough to administer. It could have been called. It wasn't. Very close.
On first down, this is Moreno, and Moreno stopped for no gain. Those returns against Denver, the punt return, the kickoff return, and the interception return, the only returns against Denver all season long.
And you look back on how Baltimore got there. We keep in mind that the big interference call against Tony Carter that allowed Baltimore to get out from, backed up into their own end zone.
Manning throwing outside, and that's complete. We have a penalty marker down as Joel Dreesen takes it across the 30 to about the 33-yard line. Bill Vinovich did not go to the microphone.
Well, that's a signal for an ineligible player downfield. That could happen if what happens is you cover up. If one of the receivers lines up in the wrong place, then all of a sudden if he's covered, he can't get out. He's not eligible to go out.
So Denver and Manning are now looking at 2nd and 16 from the 20-yard line. Looks like the same pass to Dreesen. And Dreesen out of bounds short of the 30-yard line.
And that time you see Terrell Suggs was actually the Baltimore defender back there in coverage. He is much more of a pass rushing type guy, and when he's called upon to get back in coverage, he does a pretty good job of getting out there. Dreesen's able to make the catch, but Suggs kept him from getting too much.
So now a big third down opportunity for Baltimore defensively. Manning with time. Short, complete, first down yardage. Jacob Tamme, the tight end, to midfield.
Well, that started with tremendous pass protection by the Broncos. Peyton Manning went from option 1, 2 to 3 and then started going through his progression again. And he finally just flicks it a little low, but Tamme went down and got it.
Manning changing things up at the line. Moreno for a couple. Nice catch by Jacob Tamme.
It really was. Peyton had to kind of throw it at sidearm, and it was a little low, and it was a little behind Jacob Tamme. And that's, it may look easy, but that's a difficult catch to make. What's also difficult is on the Baltimore defenders trying to cover somebody for that long a period of time.
Manning on 2nd and 8. Sideline. What a catch made. Close to the 35-yard line. Eric Decker went up and got it.
Well, Eric Decker and Demaryius Thomas are two huge receivers. And when you got this kind of a height advantage, when you're 6'3" and you can elevate, and there's a good blitz pickup by Noshawn Moreno, After executing the fake and the play action, he finishes job by picking up the blitz.
The rookie Ronnie Hillman is in the backfield now, out on the pass pattern, but Manning going deep, and that is incomplete. Fans want a flag. Demaryius Thomas being covered by Kerry Williams.
And the officiating crew deciding that that's incidental contact, that their legs. I think the important thing here for Kerry Williams is that was unintentional. He wasn't playing the ball. If he was playing the ball, you give him the benefit of the doubt. That should have drawn a flag.
Pass to Hillman out of the backfield. Hillman clocked at about the 32, and we have a penalty marker in the backfield.
That kind of contact between Williams, that should have drawn a flag. If he was back, turned around, his head looking at the football, then that stuff just happens.
Well, this penalty is going against the Baltimore Ravens, and clearly the weather perhaps has gotten to Bill Vinovich's microphone.
That's illegal use of hands. Oh, right there. I think they're going to call it on Terrence Cody, the nose tackle, who went right to the throat of center Dan Copen.
That qualifies as illegal use of hands.
Pretty good illustration of how it can get sometimes at the line of scrimmage.
First down, Denver from the 31. They give us to Moreno. Inside the 30 to about the 28-yard line, and Ray Lewis in on the tackle.
Well, Moreno's still fighting. He's acting like his knee never touched the ground. Let's take a look at the great Ray Lewis in the middle. And again, look how he just moves around the block of Orlando Franklin. He jumped around Franklin, and Franklin barely got a finger on Ray Lewis, and then Ray gets in on the tackle.
I loved when you asked Ray last night if he was going to go with the bare arms, and he looked at you like you were nuts.
Look at the whole team. The Ravens team is bare arms just about.
Manning, sideline, going up this time, and making the grab is Demaryius Thomas. And that is another Denver first down.
And again, he's being covered by Kerry Williams. And Kerry Williams is a nice-sized corner at 6'1". But when Thomas elevates like this, look where he's going up to get that football. No way could Kerry Williams go up and play the ball. He's got to play the receiver. And in that case, there's just nothing you can do about it.
Reader!
Broncos into the red zone. First down at the Baltimore 17. Manning throwing to his left again, inside the 10-yard line to the 9, and Thomas comes down with it, and now it's ruled incomplete.
They're saying that it hit the ground. This is going to give us a good look at it, right on the hands of Demaryius Thomas, and he's struggling to put the football away, and he does not, and it hits the ground. Bernard Pollard gets in there and forces him to not be able to maintain possession. Peyton goes, hey, I delivered a good pass.
Bernard Pollard has separated his share of receivers from football.
Keep in mind, it's 15 degrees out there. That football is really hard.
This is Moreno, and Moreno stacked up at the 15-yard line. Haloti Ngata.
Haloti Ngata, when we asked John Harbaugh about him, said, well, he's maybe playing at about 80%. Right there, great job of shedding the block of Chris Cooper, the right guard. And I'm talking about shedding the block. He just threw Cooper off to the side. When Ngata is healthy, he's almost unblockable. And even at 80%, he still goes to another Pro Bowl, his fourth. Bad knee, bad shoulder, but he keeps playing.
Manning on 3rd and 8. With time, going corner of the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. Brandon Stokely.
The window of opportunity to drop that football into Brandon Stokely was about 2 feet wide. It's going to be interesting. Did he get both feet down? Corey Graham working on it. Take a look at this concentration by Stokely. The knee is down. He maintains solid possession of the football after he hits the ground. Brilliant throw and reception by Brandon Stokely. First of all, look at this pass from Manning. But the knee is down. The ball doesn't wiggle a bit after he hits the ground out of bounds. What a beautiful piece of work by 18 and 14.
Extra point is good, and with that touchdown pass, Peyton Manning ties Terry Bradshaw for 6th all-time, his 30th postseason touchdown. We're tied at 14. Hey, for complete NFL playoff coverage, including everything you need to know from the divisional playoffs all the way through Super Bowl 47, visit cbssports.com/NFL. Nothing like a little give and take to start the divisional playoffs, huh?
Well, as you and I were talking, it's 14's wild. The score is 14-14, and the temperature is 14. I'll say this. We were worried about how much was the passing game going to be affected today because of the extremely low temperatures, and the answer is, well, so far, apparently not very much. From Flacco throwing deep bombs, Peyton Manning working the intermediate stuff. Looks good.
Jacoby Jones hoping to return this one, and he will. Brought down at about the 17-yard line. Joe Flacco back to work when we come back to Denver. 3:58 to play in the first. And a look at the scene here in Denver with our nationwide insurance action camp as the Ravens get set from their own 17-yard line. 3:58 to play in a 14-14 game, first quarter. Ray Rice. No running room at all on the left side.
Well, Ray Rice is going to follow his fullback, Vontae Leach, who tries to get around the corner, and he does. He gets on Wesley Woodyard and kicks him to the outside, but there was just too much pursuit. And here's this new offensive line of the Ravens. They unveiled it last week, and I think it's a great move. These are the best 5 players.
Flacco. Complete across the 20 is Ed Dixon. Out across the 25 to the 27, where Von Miller makes the stop.
Well, one of the things Joe Flacco told us was that we're going to have to complete a lot of shorter passes against Denver and hope that our guys get some good yards after the catch. He was under a lot of pressure in that first game back on December the 16th, and they figured they're going to have to get rid of the ball quickly in this game. But that's a good way to buy yourself a little time. Move the pocket left to right. Buy your quarterback a good look at the field and buy him some extra time.
New set of downs for the Ravens at the 28. End around. Here comes Torrey Smith. And Smith run out of bounds at about the 28-yard line, at about the line of scrimmage by Wesley Woodyard.
Well, end arounds either end up being a home run or not much of anything. And this fell into the not much of anything category. And Wesley Woodyard shows the great range and speed that has made him Denver's leading tackler. He covers a lot of ground in a hurry, and I think he surprised Torrey Smith with how quickly he got there and the ferocity with which he arrived.
Wesley Woodyard, who wears number 52 because he's crazy about Ray Lewis and the way he has played the game. Flacco, penalty marker is down.
But Denver was offside.
Ray Rice with the catch and is knocked down.
Yeah, Denver was offsides. I think they were in the neutral zone. Elvis Dumerville, a good hard snap count by Joe Flacco. Right there at the bottom. That's all it takes. His left hand is in the neutral zone. A good hard snap count by Joe Flacco got Dumerville. A reflective moment for Ray Lewis.
Flacco on the money. Close to midfield is Dennis Pitta. And that's a Baltimore first down.
Well, Dennis Pitta had a huge game against Denver in the first game and back in December. And if the Denver defense has an Achilles heel, it is sometimes defending the tight end. All season long, opponents' tight ends have been finding some soft spots against this Denver defense, which is the second best defense yardage-wise in the NFL.
This is Rice. And Rice wrapped up as he crossed the line of scrimmage by Mitch Unrein, second-year D lineman out of Wyoming. Dennis Pitta had 2 touchdown catches against Denver a month ago in a game that had been well decided.
And the air is a little thin up here, and the Ravens are the ones trying to acclimate. It's a question of how much oxygen can you get in your lungs. It's also you got to really fight to not become dehydrated. So getting lots of fluids is a big part of the deal today.
Flacco, quick pitch. That one is complete inside the 45 to the 43 is Dixon.
Well, I like the game that Jim Caldwell is calling so far for the Ravens. A little bit of everything, really trying to keep this really fast Denver defense in check and make them honor their responsibilities before they start running to the football. A lot of misdirection, Flacco rolling out. The end around didn't work, but it serves notice that we're gonna try to break contain different ways.
The first quarter has been a dandy here in Denver. Hard to believe we have 3 more to play. 14-14. We're coming back to Denver after this. You're watching the NFL on CBS, the home of Super Bowl 47. An action-packed first quarter. 14-14 as we begin the second. Baltimore, 3rd and 2 at the Denver 43. Pierce in the backfield with Flacco. Flacco going to go deep down the sideline, has a man open. It is ruled incomplete. Torrey Smith.
Well, I think even if he'd have held onto the football, he was out of bounds. I don't think when he comes down with this football, his left foot wasn't able to get down in bounds. Well, it was close. It was really close, but he lost possession of the football anyway. That would have made it very interesting if they'd have taken a close look at that.
Jim Leonard is deep for the Broncos. And that is a very short punt by Sam Cook, but it gets a Baltimore roll. And it's going to roll inside the 10 to about the 7. You can welcome Beyonce to the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show on CBS. Submit your photo at cbssports.com/Pepsi for a chance to be seen by millions. Your photo is on the way, is it not, Dan?
Absolutely. That'll be some show.
So Manning and the Broncos start from their own 7-yard line.
5 DBs in for Baltimore as they go nickel. As Manning goes spread.
Moreno running room off the right side, breaking tackles, and a penalty marker flies as he makes it out to about the 15 where Ray Lewis brings him down.
Well, we might have had a face mask. And again, Peyton Manning very comfortable running the football against the nickel with an extra DB in the game.
Personal foul. Face mask. Defense number 50. 15-yard penalty from the end of the run. Automatic first down.
Well, you can see that's Donnell Ellerbe that gets a hand that grazes the face mask. Here's Ray Lewis working in the middle of the field. And Ray covers a lot of ground. He has to get over there to make the tackle. So that was really not much of a face mask, but he did grab it. You got to call it.
Moreno to the 34 and another marker in the backfield.
Holding. Offense number 73. 10-yard penalty. Repeat first down.
That's Chris Cooper, the right guard. Chris Cooper has missed the last 4 games with a bad left ankle, and they're happy.
So Chris Cooper just having trouble staying healthy, but when he is healthy and in the lineup, the offensive line play of the Broncos is just vastly different, much improved.
Manning now with a 1st and 20. Crossing pattern, he's got it across the 20 to the 22, Brandon Stokely.
And Ray Lewis just sitting there waiting for that short crossing pattern, not fooled one bit. That's Ray's zone. He's just going to sit there, wait for somebody to show up. And he IDs Stokely running about a 3-yard pattern. That's fish in a barrel.
As you alluded to at the start of the day, Dan, this is not the same defense that Peyton Manning faced a month ago in Baltimore. Another crossing pattern. This one complete to Dreesen. And Dreesen out to close to the 30-yard line. It'll be about a 3rd and 10.
Well, at least he gets back to, you don't want to say 3rd and 10 is manageable, but at least he picks up, and a good blitz pickup that time by Jacob Hester. He picks up Donnell Ellerby coming in after the ball fake. The ball fake is only part of your responsibility. And Jacob Hester, who they didn't sign until late November, has been a really nice addition.
Manning again with time and throwing, and incomplete, intended for Stokely.
Well, Corey Graham was the Baltimore defender and forced Peyton Manning to go low with that throw because of the coverage. Again, there's Ray Lewis. He runs right up the field and ends up destroying Terrell Suggs in the process. Well, it ended well for Baltimore with a punt.
Jacoby Jones. And now shifting over and making the grab is Tandon Doss, and Doss is brought down almost immediately at the 19-yard line.
By Josh Bynes, his own player.
12:47 to play in the first half. 14-14. You guys know each other. Look at what the Ravens have done on offense as they get set to begin at their own 19-yard line. Dan, I'm curious, in weather like this when you played, did you cover up your arms?
No.
Show off.
Well, I might have later on in my career. I might have whipped out one time up in Minnesota. I can't lie.
Flacco to throw. Got his man across the 30, and that's Dixon, the tight end. Hey, for all of your exclusive Super Bowl 47 event info, offers, news, and more, text Super Bowl to 69635 or go to NFL.com/Super Bowl. Joe Flacco throwing the ball very well so far today.
And part of the reason, and a big part of the reason, is the fact that McKinney, Assembly, Burke, Yonda, and Orr are doing a really good job against this big-time Denver pass rush. I tell you, Brian McKinney finally got himself in shape, worked his way into a job, and this offensive line, so far in this game, off to a good start.
This is Bernard Pierce at the 35. Wesley Woodyard.
Well, Woodyard comes in, no wrap-up. Nothing even attempting to wrap up, but a big collision. Watch Woodyard scrape right into the hole, and that is a put down. But, you know, that's one of those deals that, you know, that could look good, but backfire on you. If the running back doesn't go down, he could take off and burn.
Flacco to throw on 2nd and 8. Gonna go Smith.
Well, Joe Flacco had an opportunity because, again, Torrey Smith gets separation. And that's Champ Bailey again, who's in a chase position. And after this play was over, Champ not getting any hit at all on Torrey Smith at the line of scrimmage. And that would have been a glide-in touchdown for the Ravens if Joe Flacco was able to deliver that right to Smith. That's twice that the great Champ Bailey has been smoked.
3rd and 8. Flacco on the move. And threw it away. You know, Dan, you're right. And Champ Bailey was very optimistic about his ability to be able to control Torrey Smith when we spoke with him.
And you know, the Denver defensive scheme is based around Champ Bailey not needing a safety over the top. They think that his coverage skills are good enough to go it all alone. And the safety normally rotates to the other side of the field, away from Bailey. Well, guess what? They may have to start thinking that a little bit. They may have to, Jack Del Rio might have to start thinking that maybe I'm going to have to give Bailey a little help. It's a little tough, a little late to change your philosophy, but Torrey Smith is getting by.
Sam Cook kicks it away. Trendon Holiday sees this one bounce and roll inside the 15 and down at the 14-yard line. 11:01 to play in the first half. We're still tied at 14.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by AT&T. Rethink possible. E-Trade. And by the entirely new Ford Fusion. There's still one thing it can't do.
We had a conversation with the two Denver tight ends, Joel Dreesen and Jacob Tamme, and you mentioned, Dan, that Peyton loves to throw to tight ends, and Joel Dreesen's reply was Peyton loves the open guy.
Yeah, well, Joel Dreesen had a lot of success with the Texans, and he knew Manning was here when he signed.
Manning to throw. Over the middle. 20. Demarius Thomas close to the 25. He's down to the 23.
Well, that throw from Peyton Manning was he just flicks it, but it's up in the air, and that's Demarius Thomas. I'm sure he would have preferred that right down on his chest. Good catch.
This is Moreno, and Moreno out to about the 20, about the 27, maybe the 28-yard line.
When we talked to Peyton Manning, he was talking about no huddling, but not the slower version of the no huddle. He was actually talking about snapping this football with about 20 seconds left on the play clock.
Well, this Baltimore defense has a lot of obstacles coming in here.
Well, really, they were on the field for so many snaps, over 90 of them last week, to include penalties. Peyton wanted to take their lungs out for a test run, see if he could get them back on their heels a little bit.
Manning. This is Moreno out of the backfield, brought down at the 35-yard line. Tackle is made by Corey Graham.
Sean Moreno has done such a wonderful job of filling in after the injury to Willis McGahee. And we've already seen him pick up blitzes. He's run the ball effectively. And now after a fake, he comes out and becomes a good receiver.
This is Ronnie Hillman. And Hillman dancing his way across the 40 to the 41 and a first down.
And Hillman's a rookie, and look at him cover up that football. Ronnie Hillman looked like he's been taking lessons on how to cover it up from Woody Hayes. I mean, he's got both hands on that thing as he's going through traffic, and that is smart football. Yep, this is playoff football, and you do not want to put it on the ground.
Manning sideline, complete to Decker, first down.
And I think this is where Manning would really like to keep this up tempo. You're into a rhythm offensively. Let's keep this thing moving and force Baltimore to play quick.
And this is Hillman. Hillman ahead to about the 46-yard line. Terrence Cody making the stop. You mentioned Willis McGahee. He is eligible again come AFC Championship game should Denver reach him.
He was actually out on the practice field this week with the Broncos. He was eligible to come out and try to get some work in, and it'll be very interesting to see if they activate him in time for that AFC Championship game. If they're able to win today. That's a long way.
Play fake. And with all kinds of time, wide open at the 30 is Decker. And Decker breaking free inside the 15 to the 13.
And we talked about Eric Decker, who had 8 catches in the first game and working against the Ravens zone. Talk about finding a soft spot. You know, that's a pretty wide angle we had there, and there wasn't a single Ravens defender in the frame when Decker catches that football. And then Shockey Brown not able to make the tackle.
Ball is at the Baltimore 14. Pump fake, throwing for the end zone. Moreno, touchdown. And now we get a late flag.
Well, Noshawn Moreno split out as a wide receiver, does a double move working against Donnell Ellerbe. Now there's a flag down about the 3-yard line.
Eric Decker came running up part of the celebration. I wonder if that was it. Came running up from the sideline.
Well, you split Moreno all the way out there, and a linebacker is forced to go with him. That was the matchup Manning wanted. That's asking a lot of Donnell Ellerbe to do a double move with a running back. And we're having a major conference here trying to figure this out.
Peyton, whatever Peyton said, said, I know.
There's no foul for XX celebration. Willie on the field, touchdown.
Well, again, Noshawn Moreno working on Ellerbe. Ed Reed not able to get over there in time. Well, you're not allowed to have a group celebration, and where is Eric Decker's helmet? You know, normally, the guy's allowed to celebrate on his own, but the officials picked that thing up and said, hey, let's just move on. It wouldn't have negated the touchdown. It would have been applied on the next kickoff, but
kickoff would have ended up in the second deck. The extra point is good. Just under 7.5 to play in the first half. First points of the second quarter go to the Broncos. It's 21-14 Denver. Once again, the Ravens find themselves on the short end of the scoreboard. 7:26 to play in the first half. And Noshawn Moreno is a heck of a story for the Denver Broncos, isn't he, Dan?
Well, he fumbled in the Atlanta game early in the season, and then he was inactive for 2 months. Now that is a big doghouse, and Noshawn Moreno was in there for an extended period of time and didn't get an opportunity until Willis McGahee got hurt. And boy, has he made the most of it.
John Fox said he did everything right. He got all of his reps on the practice field.
Never complained, just worked hard.
Jacoby Jones, deep for Baltimore. Returnable kick, Jones, in the 4. Tripped up at the 25, falls forward to the 26. Let's go back to the tail end of that Moreno touchdown catch.
Well, Eric Decker is down here, and he's actually running from the bench. He wasn't on the field. He was not on the field for the play. So the reality is it's not a penalty. If he would have been one of the players who was on the field, one of the 11 guys on the field, and removed his helmet and run in for that celebration, that would have drawn a flag. But seeing that he wasn't, he came from the bench, that's okay.
Okay, let's see how resilient the Ravens can be. 7:20 to play. They're down a touchdown. Rice out of the backfield, and he was under pressure.
Well, he expected Ray Rice to break upfield, and Ray broke off his outlet pattern. And that's pretty standard stuff. That happens to everybody. But Joe thought that Ray Rice would see the middle of the field was pretty empty and keep going.
Right up the middle and across the 30 to about the 31-yard line. Ray Rice a little defensive this week about the 2 balls that he coughed up last week, and he just simply said it won't happen again.
No, and you know, he doesn't have a reputation as a fumbler. He's a sure-handed ball carrier. He has fumbled more often in the postseason than he has in the regular season, but still, they were fortunate they won the game anyway. Kind of no harm, no foul.
3rd and 4. Flacco going to roll to his left and lofted for Bolden. Knocked down by Chris Harris.
And Baltimore still hasn't converted a 3rd down. They're 0 for 4. And Chris Harris gets away with a little contact on Anquan Bolden as well. But at the end, he goes back and he plays the football, IDs it, and knocks it away.
His defensive coordinator, Jack Del Rio, with the open arms. Trendon Holiday back at about his own 20-yard line. And Sam Cook drives this one out of bounds.
Oh, that's a heck of a punt.
And we have a Bronco down at about the 41-yard line. We'll check on him. Welcome back to Denver. Omar Bolden, the injured Denver Bronco on that punt. Let's go back and take a look and see what happened to him.
Well, his job is to try to block the gunner, and when he goes down, he lands really awkwardly, and he somehow damaged the left shoulder or collarbone, whatever, but he's not interested at all in trying to move that left arm.
Here's offensive coordinator Mike McCoy, one of the hot properties for vacant head coaching jobs around the league.
And he's had multiple interviews. And it'll be interesting to see if teams are willing to wait. Still a lot of vacancies out there.
This is Moreno for a couple across the 20 to about the 21. Kimoyadu making the tackle.
Again, it is very cold here in Denver. The temperature is dropping, and it's somewhere in the low teens right now.
Wind chill is about 1.
But surprisingly, the passing game, when you've watched it, hasn't really seemed to suffer like you might think it would. We've seen some touch passes. We've seen some good catches.
Hurry!
On 2nd and 8. Manning throwing across the 30-yard line, and that is complete to Eric Decker. That'll be a 1st down.
Well, and how about Peyton Manning showing that he can move a little bit, get those 36-year-old legs moving a little bit. We'll have a little play action, and I'll come out and break, contain, and set up. And again, a good throw to a sliding receiver. Tough to defend that.
Back to the ground game, and Ronnie Hillman breaking free out across the 40 and very close to another 1st down at the 41.
Well, Peyton Manning so far with 5 minutes left here in the 2nd quarter. That was an interception, run back for a touchdown by Graham, and then it's, again, he counters with a brilliant pass to Brandon Stokely, and it comes back, and again, a perfect strike to Noshawn Moreno for his 2nd touchdown pass.
Denver has outgained Baltimore here in the 2nd quarter, 127 to 22 yards. Manning pulls it down, looks the other way, and hits Jacob Hester out of the backfield to the 49.
Hester played for the Chargers for 4 years, and when they let him loose, and the Broncos couldn't gobble him up quickly enough. And again, you know, when you sign that late in November, the 26th. That's great production.
That's Hester again. Hester looking for first down yardage. Looks like he may be about a yard short of it. Well, Jacob Hester won a high school championship in the Superdome in 1999. Then he won the BCS championship with LSU in 08 in the Superdome.
Are you going somewhere with this?
No, but he might.
Where's the Super Bowl this year?
Down yonder. Moreno with a first down.
That is a great story, but they just love what Hester brings to this team. Pass blocking, recognition, always picks up the right guy, and a little power to the run game. Good half so far for Noshawn Moreno. Not the running is a little tough sledding for Moreno. 9 carries, 27 yards. That's only 3 yards per.
Saw Terrell Suggs huffing and puffing on the sideline. 3:20 to play in the first half. That pass by Manning short of his intended receiver, Dreesen.
Yeah, Peyton read the Baltimore blitz coming, and he got rid of it in a hurry, and it was just an inaccurate throw. Again, there's Ronnie Hillman, number 21. Look at him come across, get involved, but he's got Courtney Upshaw coming right at him unblocked, and he gets rid of it in a hurry and just didn't throw it accurately.
This is Hillman going around the left side, turning the corner and out of bounds at the 40. Knocked out by Kerry Williams. While we have a moment, Monday, the engagement is on. Now it's time to meet the parents and freak out. Save the date for a new How I Met Your Mother, Monday only. CBS.
Hillman that time showed everybody what kind of quickness he's got getting around the edge. He surprised Courtney Upshaw, who was in good possession but couldn't make the play.
Ronnie Hillman, the youngest player in the NFL, 21 years and 3 months. Jacob Hester is back into the backfield. Hester with the ball. Tripped up on his way to the line of scrimmage by Terrell Suggs.
I don't think he's going to get it. He's going to be short. Let's see where they spot this.
And
you're too
Peyton
far.
Manning wants to go for it.
Well, it's too far for a field goal. It's too far for a field goal. I think this is your only choice. Why punt from the 37-yard line? You got to go for it.
Fourth and 1. Hester straight ahead, diving, and very close to it.
Well, this, if he makes it, it's going to be by the nose of the football, and Bill Vinovich gives it to him, and John Harbaugh goes without even a measurement.
I have to tell you, I didn't think that was a gimme.
Again, pretty well defended by the Ravens. Tough sledding in there. Terrell Suggs is right in the middle of that.
Two minutes to play. While they sort it out, we'll take a break and come back after this.
Welcome back to Denver, everybody. While we were away, they did measure. They gave the first down to the Broncos, but keep in mind, because this happened outside the 2-minute warning and it has to do with a first down, Baltimore could challenge this if they so elected, because it started outside the 2-minute warning. Now, if John Harbaugh wants to try to challenge this spot, it's going to be really difficult to overturn it. He had a lengthy conversation with Bill Vinovich about a minute ago, and it lasted for a good minute. In fact, they're going back.
There's still conversation going on the Baltimore side of the field.
Vinovich just came back over. And I think John Harbaugh is getting messages from upstairs as to whether or not they should drop the challenge flag.
The first thing John Harbaugh didn't like was the quickness with which a first down was declared.
And I'm sure John Harbaugh is getting word, and here it comes.
Yep.
They're going to challenge it.
Baltimore is challenging the previous ruling on the field of the line to gain. Timeout.
Well, that's a good call by John Harbaugh. What's he got to lose?
Sure. This is what they'll be looking at. while we take a break. Welcome back. Bill Vinovich is under the hood taking a look at shots like this one.
The problem with like that shot is you can't see the football. He's got to see something completely conclusive to overturn the call on the field. Now right there, when does Hester's knee touch the ground? At first, his knee's not on the ground and he's still driving.
After reviewing the play, the ruling on the field stands. Baltimore's charged with a foul and the first challenge.
And he says it stands and not confirmed. The reality is you just couldn't see the football from any of those angles, and I don't see how Bill Vinovich could have possibly either confirmed it or overturned it, given the evidence in front of it.
So Baltimore down to 2 timeouts remaining here in the last 2 minutes of the first half.
Still a good challenge by John Harbaugh.
Denver with 10 first downs here in the second quarter to Baltimore's 1. This is Hester to the 33.
Again, though, what Denver is doing is they're running the football. That was their 17th run, and that really sets up the Manning play action.
Check. 59 is Mike. 59 is Mike. Hurry.
Manning throwing off the hands of Demaryius Thomas. That'll stop the clock with 1:26 to play.
Oh, Demaryius Thomas really drove Kerry Williams deep. I mean, Kerry Williams is a good 3 or 4 yards behind Thomas, who did a great comeback. But the Manning throw was just too far to the outside, and Thomas not able to get it. That was a real missed opportunity for the Broncos.
3rd and 7.
Hurry. Cut. Wait up, Sony. Hold on. 59 is Mike. Chopper.
Ed Reed sitting back in center field, clear back at the 10-yard line.
Manning, lots of time and throwing over the middle, incomplete, batted down.
Well,
Terrell Suggs all over Jacob Hester.
Suggs in coverage again. Hester looking around for a flag. You know, Suggs, who really made his mark most of his career by crashing the quarterback in the pocket, showing his coverage skills here a little bit this afternoon.
And that will bring out Matt Prater. 133 total points during the regular season, 2 career 59-yard field goals, this one from 52.
Now what wind we had earlier was blowing in his face as he attempts this. And that was a knuckleball all the way.
Kicking here in Denver has its advantages. Matt Prater, 15 out of 20 from 50 or more yards, but now 15 for 21.
Well, good snap. Colquitt gives him a good hold. And now Baltimore ends up with some really good field position. He hits the ground. Boy, he hit the ground way behind the football. I mean, he struck the ground a good foot behind the football. And now with 1:16 the Ravens find themselves with some good field position. And keep in mind, they only have 2 timeouts because they burned 1 on that challenge.
Joe Flacco with a minute 16 on the clock. Ray Rice in the backfield. Flacco dodging pressure, throws. Oh, what a catch made inside the 50-yard line by Anquan Boldin.
And sometimes there's no substitute for being a big, strong guy. And that's exactly what Joe Flacco is. That was one of the few times today that he was under duress in the pocket, and he stood in there and delivered a great pass.
Flacco throwing in that direction again, and the diving catch made on the far side of the field by Dennis Pitta. Remember we were talking with Anquan Boldin about catching the ball in cold weather, and he said You catch the ball with your eyes.
Yeah, and he says, it makes no difference at all. You just do what you have to do. It doesn't matter what the temperature is.
First down now at the 32 of the Broncos. Flacco going to go deep down the sideline. Caught for the touchdown. Torrey Smith.
And again, Champ Bailey on the coverage. That was a fantastic drive by the Ravens. All right, Bailey looks back, finds the football, but look at Bailey. He's not able to react. Torrey Smith is able to pull up, stop his forward momentum, and come back and make the catch. And Champ Bailey just unable to stop his momentum downfield. Torrey Smith, the guy that athletically was able to come back and make that catch. How pretty is that?
The extra point is good, and with 36 seconds to play, we are tied again at 21. And Dan, this is amazing because all of our conversations with Champ Bailey, he was absolutely convinced that he could handle Torrey Smith. That hasn't been the case today.
Well, he was always talking about getting his hands on Torrey Smith at the line of scrimmage, disrupting his route, and after that, he's not much of a factor. Torrey Smith is just going wild here. 91 yards on 2 catches against Champ Bailey. And remember, he was wide open on another one where Joe Flacco overthrew him, or he would have 3.
A 59-yard touchdown catch in the first quarter for Smith. 32 on this one with 36 seconds to play in the half.
And again, kudos to this Ravens offensive line. They are giving Joe Flacco a really great look at things. And you don't see anybody come out with a whole new offensive line in the playoffs, and that's what the Ravens did. Or from left tackle to right tackle, Assembly from right tackle to left guard, Bryant McKinney from the bench to left tackle. They lost Ja Reed because of the toe injury, but man alive, are these guys playing some ball?
John Harbaugh said Bryant McKinney came to him and said, I want to play some more, and John Harbaugh said, practice better. And he did. There's offensive coordinator Jim Caldwell upstairs.
And you know, John Harbaugh challenged that play, and after that, you're going, well, it didn't work out for him. Here comes Denver, and then what a stand by the Ravens defense, and then wow, look at bang, away they go.
Apparently the wind is kicked up down on the field.
Again, let's take a look at this Baltimore offensive line. And again, that's just, giving Joe Flacco, and with Flacco's arm strength, he doesn't even have to stride into the football to cover that much ground.
So now the ball is going to be held for Justin Tucker. Trindon Holiday will let this one go through the end zone for the touchback. Coming up, the Verizon halftime report. JB, Dan, Shannon, Boomer, Coach Bill Cowher in the warmth of the studio in New York for first half highlights of this game.
He says with much envy.
And they'll have all the latest NFL playoff news and information coming up on the Verizon halftime report. Well, for all the problems they had teeing up the football, the flags aren't showing any wind, but it is still very cold here in Denver.
Well, 36 seconds, 3 timeouts for Denver. How aggressive are they going to be? Not very.
Hester to the 21. And no timeout is called. The teams will leave the field. It has been a first half of rebounding from a big play and hitting the other guy with a big play. 3 ties, 21-21, Baltimore and Denver. Ray Lewis going up against Peyton Manning for the last time in his great career. 21-21 our halftime score. We're back with the Verizon halftime report after this message and a word from your local station, You're watching the NFL on CBS, the home of Super Bowl 47.
Divisional. Baltimore Ravens.
Intercepted, picked off by the Ravens.
Ray Lewis. Denver Broncos.
Down the sideline, touchdown.
Peyton Manning.
Corner of the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. Back in Denver, Baltimore 21, Denver 21 as we get set for the start of the second half. Greg Gumbel along with Dan Deerdorf. Easily the most surprising thing that's happened today has been the way Torrey Smith has been handling Champ Bailey, and you have to wonder what John Fox is going to do to what kind of an adjustment he's going to make.
Well, you're right. Torrey Smith has really been having his way with Champ Bailey. I mean, right there, that last play, that touchdown, wide open again, and if that's a little better pass, that's a touchdown. I mean, he's got 2 touchdowns. The easy answer is to say, well, we rotate a safety over on top to help out Champ Bailey. Well, the whole basic concept of the Denver defense doesn't involve that. Champ is supposed to be by himself. I think what Champ Bailey has to do is help himself. He's got to get a better hit. He's got to stymie Torrey Smith at the line of scrimmage, which is what he said he was going to do before this game started.
Yeah, obviously, it hasn't worked, and so far it's a 21-21 tie. Follow your favorite team all season long. Go to itunes.com/NFL. It is still a cold day here in Denver. The temperature is now 11 degrees and the wind chill is -1. And Denver will get the football first here in the second half. Trendon Holiday will be able to run this one out of the end zone from about 4 or 5 yards deep. And right up the middle of the field. And there he goes! Holiday! 20-10 touchdown Denver! A 90-yard punt return. He follows that up with a 104-yard kickoff return to start the second half.
Oh, the pain John Harbaugh must be feeling right now. Trendon Holiday starts right, goes left, and then goes right back up the middle of the field. And once again, a lack of lane responsibility by the coverage unit of the Baltimore Ravens. And for the second time today, Peyton Manning, ready to come out onto the field, has to wait because of Trendon Holiday.
And John Harbaugh, an old special teams coach, must especially feel the pain.
Oh, how that's got to hurt. 5 feet, 5 inches tall, Trendon Holiday playing really big today.
The littlest guy on the field has made the biggest impression today.
Well, he's gotten some good blocking up front, but as you see, he didn't have to break any tackles on the way there. It's not like he steamrolled anybody.
Extra point is good. 14:47 to play. John Fox says, "You're my guy." It is a genuine holiday celebration for the Denver Broncos. The fans, because of the cold weather, wasted no time going indoors at halftime. And look, they aren't back yet.
No, but they could hear it and probably feel it wherever they were in this stadium about the time that Holiday got to the 50-yard line.
28-21 Denver. And Jacoby Jones, who is the Pro Bowl kick returner for the AFC, hoping to get a chance to strut his stuff. Not on this one. It'll come out to the 20-yard line. Let's go back to it.
Well, Holiday gets a great block that springs him from Jacob Hester. Number 40 there in the middle of your screen. He takes out Sean Considine, and Brendan Ayanbadejo kind of jumps out of his lane, thinking that Holiday's going to the right. And that created that opening. There's Hester there on your left. Considine really runs into him, but he takes him to the ground. And then Ian Badejo kind of over-pursued it and jumped out of his lane. And
Brendan Ian Badejo is a 3-time Pro Bowl special teamer. On first down, Ray Rice, who only had 6 touches in the first half. Not much there. Let's go down to Solomon Wilcots.
Well, guys, I talked to John Fox at halftime, and he got some help from the special teams. Now he wants some help for his defense. He said coming into this game, we knew Joe Flacco was deadly throwing the ball down the field to the right side. They feel he's less effective throwing it over to his left. Both touchdown passes in the first half came over to the right to Torrey Smith. He said, we've got to get him to throw it over to his left side here in the second half and make some plays in the secondary.
Thanks, Solly. 2nd and 8. And Rice again.
Well, Solly, I'll tell you one thing. You can maybe ask Flacco if he'll start throwing it over to the left. But as long as Torrey Smith is lighting up Champ Bailey, he's got no reason to move. And again, I think it all starts with Champ Bailey when he gets an opportunity. He's got to get up in Torrey Smith's face and disrupt him early in the pattern. He can't get into this deal running downfield with Torrey Smith. He's losing that battle.
Bailey is out here at the bottom of your screen on Torrey Smith on 3rd and 7. Flacco, first sack of the day. And Robert Ayers in on the Baltimore quarterback. And we have a penalty marker down on the play.
Offside. Defense number 92. 5-yard penalty. 3rd down.
Elvis Dumerville, and he does. He guesses on the snap count, and he guesses wrong. He's trying to get upfield on Bryant McKinney, and no doubt about that, he was well offside. So that negates the sack.
For the season, and here is a 3rd down conversion, and Ray Rice down the sideline for big yardage, knocked out of bounds near midfield.
Well, as Ray Rice goes normally, that's how this offense goes. I don't think you can count all day on Torrey Smith carrying this offense, and that's exactly what you need. Great block at the point of attack by Michael Orr, and then Anquan Bolden with a nice kick out. And Dennis Pitta gets a good block on Miller at the point of attack as well.
This is Bernard Pierce, and Pierce going to lose a yard on the play.
Well, that's how you set the edge. That nobody was going to get around that corner on Denver. That stacked it up. But that last play, that was a thing of runny beauty.
We have a penalty marker.
12 men. Defense. 5-yard penalty. 3 first down.
Well, a couple of mistakes on this drive by John Fox's defense. And again, this is a superb defensive unit, but you don't make it easy on the other guy. And that's Jack Del Rio, the former Jacksonville Jaguars coach, was in his first year here coordinating.
Flacco went with a quick snap and caught them with a 12th man on the field. 1st and 5.
And Denver's offsides again. This time I think Von Miller. I don't know if they think they've got some cue as to Joe Flacco's snap count, but they don't.
Offside. Defense number 58. 5-yard penalty. Results in it. First down.
There's Von Miller, and again, he just leans down and tries to get a little jump upfield on Michael Orr, but he's in the neutral zone at the snap. And this is really uncharacteristic for this defensive team to just be handing yardage over to the opponent.
Yeah, the Broncos grab the lead and then suddenly become mistake prone on defense. Bailey on Torrey Smith.
7 penalties on the day, and the crowd noise certainly seems to be affecting their own defense instead of Baltimore's offense.
And the ball's on the ground. Loose ball covered by Denver. Keith Brooken, the middle linebacker.
The ball is on the ground, and Joe Flacco looks like he's going to be able to get the ball, but then it gets kicked by one of his teammates. And you see a little pushing and shoving here. Joe Flacco's going to be able to recover this ball when it hits the ground. It's a fumbled exchange right there, and then you see the ball gets kicked away from him. Looked like Brian McKinney's foot hit it.
At the very start of the day, I asked you about cold weather effect on the teams, and you said one of the things is the exchange between the center and the quarterback.
No doubt about it. Anyone who handles the football in this type of environment, you've just got to stay with it. I mean, two veteran guys, Matt Burke at the center position.
Baltimore lost 5 fumbles during the regular season. It's the 3rd fumble they've lost in this postseason.
Now keep in mind, Flacco had a fumble in the game back in December on a quarterback sneak.
No Sean Moreno. To about the 48.
Well,
Ray Lewis and Ed Reed combining for the stop.
Well, Ray Lewis, since he was drafted #1 back in 1996, how many times have we seen him able to rally a defense to overcome a mistake by their offense and make a stand? And we have been watching it his whole career, and that's right where this defense is right now. Their offense made a mistake. They gave great field position to Denver. Can they get it done and force Denver to kick it away?
Manning over the middle. Penalty marker flies, and another. Ray Lewis on Brandon Stokely.
Pass interference. Defense number 52. Spot foul. Automatic first down.
Well, Ray Lewis again just sitting. We saw it in the first half where he made a good tackle on Stokely after Stokely caught the ball. But Ray Lewis this time, he just didn't think he could run with Stokely and just reached out and grabbed it. That was a conscious decision on Ray's part. Yardage-wise, it wasn't that big a deal.
This is Ronnie Hillman. And Hillman, another late flag in the backfield.
Holding. Offense number 77. 10-yard penalty. 3 first down.
Well, Eric Decker is over there talking to the official, and John Harbaugh is basically going, "This is my sideline." Basically, he's telling Decker that you do a lot of talking over there. I know that the Ravens feel that Eric Decker gets away with a lot of offensive interference, but Eric Decker, you know, that's the Ravens sideline. That's not the best place to go over there and engage the official in a conversation. That's inviting trouble.
That was a holding call on Denver. The Broncos now have a 1st and 20.
Their 8th penalty. Denver is just really not playing very disciplined football here in his second half. Thank heavens for Holiday.
Manning throws, bounces it.
Well, Paul Kruger forced that throw. If Peyton Manning would have put that ball where it would have been completed, Paul Kruger would have run into the end zone with an interception. Kruger there on the right, 99, unblocked. I mean, yeah, he's right there. Peyton has to throw that low and away. That was a smart move by Manning and a good piece of work by Paul Kruger of forcing the issue.
Paul Kruger has been a force for the Ravens in the second half of the season. 7.5 sacks over his last 8 games. 2nd and 20.
He's really the only real effective pass rusher they have. Terrell Suggs, coming back from the Achilles, he's just not as explosive as he was.
Manning. He goes down, and another penalty marker is down, and the ball is loose.
And the minute I say that, there's Suggs right at his feet.
Ravens say they have the football.
And an official agrees with him.
Now let's check the flag. Peyton says not so fast.
Illegal hands in the face. Defense number 55. 5-yard penalty. Automatic first down.
So that negates the fumble recovery. The penalty is on Terrell Suggs.
Well, Terrell Suggs is there on the left working against Ryan Clady. And where are they? Boy, that was brief. You could see Clady's head go back, but it looks to me like his hand is more on the shoulder pad and down a little lower. I didn't see the hand actually up in the face. That was a pretty ticky-tack call against Terrell Suggs.
Well, there's still a discussion going on amongst the officials. And remember, in the postseason, it's not an officiating crew that's been together all season long. It's a best of. You know, they are having a casual conversation like it's a warm, sunny day.
Well, it's playoff football. You want to make sure that you get it right. Again, look on the left-hand side. Working against Clady. Now he gets up under the face mask, and whether that technically is hands to the face. Normally in that position you see a hand on the face mask. I wouldn't call that hands to the face. That's the kind of stuff that happens between linemen all the time. Now, was there another foul? But there were 2 flags thrown, so maybe we've got multiple fouls here that Bill Vinovich hasn't informed us of yet.
Unless the conversation is about the line of scrimmage. Here we go.
Okay, there are 2 fouls on the play, both on the defense. Illegal hands in the face, defense number 55. That penalty is declined. Illegal hands in the face, defense number 29. That penalty is accepted. 5 yards from the previous spot, automatic first down.
Well, the one against Kerry Williams is the one that's being accepted, and I can only imagine how this is being received in Baltimore right now. About the same way it's been received on their sideline by John Harbaugh. Not very well. Well, that would have been a huge play, a turnover that gets negated by the 2 penalties. The officials are still conferring, not freeing the teams to play yet.
This is on the far side of the field. That is Shockey Brown on Demaryius Thomas.
I don't know if I couldn't see a flag in the.
Since Denver fumbled the ball, we have to go from the spot at the end of the run. It'll be 5 yards and automatic first down from that spot.
So this is all just trying to determine the proper positioning for the first down play for the Denver Broncos. So they've moved the line of scrimmage back. And Peyton Manning, he was actually down on the ground. His knee was on the ground before that ball came out. That would have been overturned.
52. Make Mike backside. Make Mike backside.
So the line of scrimmage is the Denver 42. First down. Hillman squeezes through the middle, across the 45 to the 47. And Donnell Ellerby in on the tackle.
Well, that took a long time to sort that out. And again, Peyton Manning going no huddle, but not going really quickly.
Broncos trying to capitalize on a Flacco fumble.
52's Mike! Hurry!
Manning, incomplete. Intended for Decker, covered by Ellerby.
And Donnell Ellerby, man, as he stepped up. And you talk to Denver and ask them about who stands out on the Ravens defense, and they'll tell you that it's Donnell Ellerby. And look at that move he makes. Kind of working his zone. He rolls with a receiver and then breaks off, comes back inside. Beautifully done.
Ellerby, one of those who didn't play a month ago in the game in Baltimore against Denver. 3rd and 5. Narrow. And that won't get him anywhere near a first down.
No, and before this all started, we talked about how many times have we seen Ray Lewis get his defense to get this done, and that's exactly what they did. It's exactly what they did, forcing a Denver punt. Good work by the Baltimore defense, even with a couple penalties along the way.
That's Tandon Doss back at his 10-yard line.
Not very often on 3rd and 5 you see Peyton Manning hand it off instead of trusting himself to get it done throwing the football.
Britton Colquitt. Doss is going to let this one bounce. Inside the 5 and covered at about the 2.5-yard line. Matthew Willis making the special teams play. So Ray Lewis exhorting his teammates. They're down a touchdown.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Southwest Airlines. Find our fares online only at southwest.com. Acura Advance. And by Pepsi. Help welcome Beyonce to the Pepsi Super Bowl 47 halftime show. Details at pepsi.com.
9:45 to play in the 3rd. This Denver crowd is alive. They see an opportunity for the defense to capitalize on field position. First down from their own 3 for the Ravens. Pierce. To about the 5 or the 6. Let's go down to Solomon Wilcott. Solomon.
Guys, at halftime, I talked to head coach John Harbaugh. He said that Joe Flacco had such success throwing the ball in the first half. He believes that Denver will have to commit a safety to the back end. They should get the looks up front and be able to pound the running game. Lots of Ray Rice, lots of Bernard Pierce.
Thanks, Solly. He did want to make sure Ray Rice established the running game today. Rice has 9 carries for 46 yards, no receptions. 2nd and 7. Vontae Leach. Out to about the 8.
Well, Vontae Leach isn't a primary ball carrier by any stretch of the imagination. He only had 9 of them during the course of the entire regular season. But sometimes he's been an effective change of pace. Right now, the 3rd and 4. Be careful of Doomerville and Von Miller getting a good jump on the ball. Now Joe Flacco's been getting them off sides. Let's see if he can do it again.
Champ Bailey on Torrey Smith at the top of the screen. On the slant. And Torrey Smith to about the 15 for a first down.
Oh, that's a good, crisp pattern by Torrey Smith and a very decisive, good throw. And again, Champ Bailey back on his heels, and the abrupt cut inside on the quick post by Torrey Smith really left Champ Bailey struggling to keep his feet. Ray Lewis looks like he's bleeding on his right hand.
Here's Bernard Pierce. Pierce brought to a stop by Wesley Woodyard.
And he's got the training staff working on his ring finger there on the right hand.
Think he feels that?
Nope, not as cold as it is.
On 2nd and 6, this is Pierce again. Pierce had himself a terrific day against Indianapolis last week. 13 carries for 103 yards.
Well, there you get a good look at his finger, and pretty banged up. There goes Pierce off, and Ray Rice back out onto the field. He's got a knee problem. He missed a couple days of practice this week, Bernard Pierce.
3rd and 3. Flacco. Looking, throwing.
He just throws that away. He had no choice. He was being run out of bounds, and he had nowhere to go with the football. He did a good job of getting outside. He gets away from Kevin Vickerson, but then again, couldn't find a receiver with any separation.
There's that man, Trendon Holiday.
I might be trying to kick this toward a sideline. I'm not sure I'd be interested in hitting a huge high run.
Fair catch called for and made 25-yard line.
But towards the sideline, that's a good punt.
Good kick by Sam Cook. Manning and the Broncos from their own 25 after this. Hey, you can welcome Beyonce to the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show here on CBS. Submit your photo at cbsports.com/Pepsi for a chance to be seen by millions.
Well, whoever's responsible for booking halftime shows, well done.
You look at today's leaders and keep in mind these two teams fighting for a berth in the AFC Championship game next week. Today's winner plays the winner of tomorrow's matchup between the Patriots and the Houston Texans. Manning won for his last 6 throwing.
Here's Mike, Linda! Linda! Hurry!
Over the middle, complete to the 35. Joel Dreesen, very close to a first down.
Right between Ray Lewis and Corey Graham. Peyton Manning looking all the way for Joel Dreesen, and he gets right into the middle of that Baltimore zone.
This is Ronnie Hillman. Now, just because Peyton Manning has a 1-touchdown lead doesn't mean he's going to abandon throwing the ball all over the field as he's used to.
Well, no, but Peyton Manning will take whatever he gets, and if Baltimore's going to sit back and nickel, he will run the football. He knows he's sitting on a lead. He's more than comfortable handing the ball off time after time.
This is Hillman, and nothing there in the middle of the field for Hillman. Let's see if he has enough for the first down. Dan, if this is short, what's John Fox doing?
Well, they're going to come out for a measurement. That's what they're going to do. When you've got the number 2 defense in the NFL, you don't turn the ball over at your 35-yard line. If it's 4th down, you punt this ball away. You don't throw your defense to the hounds. Not when you've got a touchdown lead.
Wow. First down and not by much.
By about 1 link of the chain. That was it. And again, John Harbaugh, the spots and the measurements just have not been going the Ravens' way. Again, Peyton Manning's got him up at the line, ready to go.
Hurry!
Manning, this side of the field, batted away, incomplete, intended for Decker.
And Decker wants a flag on Williams, but that was pretty good timing. You know, again, you talk to officials and they use the term bang, bang. You know, in super slow-mo, maybe it's a hair early. That is very seldom going to draw a flag. That's just good defensive work by Kerry Williams.
3-7!
Well, you got to be patient on defense against Manning.
Hurry!
Manning under pressure and throws it away. It was Haloti Ngata coming right up the middle.
And he ends up putting Peyton Manning on the ground, and Peyton comes away with a little bit of the mile-high turf on his face mask. And Nada just gets a great whiff on Chris Cooper, the right guard. And I know it must really be something to have a guy the size of Haloti Ngata jump around you. And his acceleration, his athleticism is just extraordinary.
6'4", 340 pounds, and Peyton wearing a little of the turf on his helmet. 3rd and 10.
Hurry!
And here comes the blitz.
Manning on the move, throwing sideline, diving catch made for a first down by Jacob Tamme.
What a job by Peyton Manning throwing the ball on the run. Here come the Ravens right up the middle. Double A-gap blitz. Ray Lewis gets picked up by Hester, but still, he's only slowed down. He's still chasing Manning. Now this is a tight end running a pattern like a wide receiver. Jacob Tamme is tight end name only. He's got a lot of wide receiver in him.
This is Ronnie Hillman, and Hillman is brought down behind the line of scrimmage by 52.
Well, Courtney Upshaw, he makes this happen. He gets upfield. Talk about setting the edge. There's Upshaw. He forces this play really wide. Hillman never gets a chance to turn upfield, and Ray cleans it up. But 91, though, Courtney Upshaw, he made it happen.
Word we get from the sideline is that Noshawn Moreno has a knee injury. His return is questionable for Denver. Ronnie Hillman getting the snaps. Out of the backfield now. Manning stepping up with a bullet to the 45-yard line and complete to Tamme.
Well, if you wonder whether Peyton Manning, after the 4 neck surgeries, could still drive the football, check this out. Paul Kruger comes right in there and drops Manning. But this is really a laser shot to Jacob Tamme. And I'll tell you, the loss of Moreno, that hurts. That hurts. He does the heavy lifting in the running game for this offense and has already run the ball 24 times.
Hester in the backfield now on 3rd and 1. Play clock down to 3. Hester with the football. And has the first down.
There's really a late flag thrown in.
Holding. Offense number 73. 10-yard penalty. Still 3rd down.
Well, that negates the first down. Chris Cooper is the guilty party.
There at 73, Chris Cooper right on the right side of your screen. He just flips Kemoeatu over onto his back. You know, part of that flag was Kemoeatu flipping over like that. There's Peyton Manning spreading the football around, letting everybody get involved. And again, Demaryius Thomas kind of sticks out there with only 2 receptions for a total of 20 yards.
So now another opportunity for the Baltimore defense. 3rd and 11. Manning needs the 44 of the Ravens for a first down.
9 penalties already on Denver in this game, still in the 3rd quarter.
Manning. Down. Lost the football. And Paul Kruger is on top of it. The official signaled Baltimore football.
Bernard Pollard is screaming at an official. Peyton Manning, again, well, the tuck rules. The tuck rule is going to come into play here. Peyton Manning aborted that throw and was bringing the football down. The question was, did he get it completely put away?
Yep. Bill Vinovich doesn't have to tell us. We know. We're going to look at it.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Nationwide Insurance. Nationwide is on your side. And by Honda. Things can always be better, Introducing the best Honda Civic yet.
All right, we're back here in Denver, and they're taking a look at this. I think Peyton Manning starts to lose control of this football right there. It's coming out of his hands, and he's not able to ever regain control of the football. I think that's going to be an incomplete pass because he's attempting to tuck it, and he loses control of the football on the way down. And as bitter as this might end up being for Baltimore, this may very well end up being ruled an incomplete pass. I think that one straight-on shot gives us a good look at the ball starting to come out of his hand. Right there you can see that he's losing. He doesn't have a grip on the football. This is a shot right here. It looks to me like the football is coming loose in his hand on the way down. You can see it sliding down his fingers in an attempt to tuck the ball back, and he never regains control of it. And I don't know how they could.
And Bill Vinovich has made his decision.
After reviewing the play, the ruling on the field stands. Baltimore's ball, first down.
Wow.
Wow, what a huge play for the Baltimore Ravens.
I'm very surprised at that. Obviously, Bill Vinovich is saying that he didn't see enough to overturn it.
And that he felt that Peyton had it put away and then lost it.
But it looked like he was losing control of the football as he was tucking it.
Manning now with an interception and a fumble. 2 turnovers today, and this is Rice. And Rice is brought to a stop by Von Miller.
Only the second fumble loss in 20 career games in the postseason for Peyton Manning. And that came at there's not a good time, but after they converted a first down, had to back up because of the holding call, and now Baltimore ends up with the ball.
This was a golden opportunity for the Ravens.
Yes, it is.
Rice right up the middle, breaking it. 15, 10. Down inside the 5-yard line, it'll be first and goal.
Well, what a great job by this offensive line. Take a look. Marshall Yanda comes around. A great double team by McKinney and Assembly. And then Yanda comes around on the power, gets the kick out, and Ray Rice goes, whoa, do I like the look of this.
And Raheem Moore, who made one of the last hits, looked to be a little shaken up and is coming off the field. 1:40 to play, third quarter. We'll be back. This is Baltimore's first trip into the red zone on offense today. Back in Baltimore near the end of the first half. Joe Flacco threw a sideline pass that was picked off by Chris Harris and returned 98 yards for a touchdown. First and goal from the 4. Rice diving to the 1.
Well, that's exactly what the Ravens, Solomon Wilcots told us that John Harbaugh wanted to really run the ball here in the second half. Another double team, McKinney and Assembly, and Ray Rice comes right in behind it. A little old-fashioned power football, dirt, mud, got it all going on. Follow 44 to the football.
Rice down short of the goal line. And we have 50 seconds to play here in the third.
When they get in that I formation, you know Vontae Leach is going to lead Ray Rice. At that time, it just wasn't extremely well blocked. Jackson was standing in the hole and tackled Rice.
Rice again. Touchdown, Baltimore.
And again, Ray Rice got you down to the goal line and then go power football. on first, second, and third down. That's what you do in the playoffs. And again, take a look at it. There's Vontae Leach. Marshall Yanda pulls around one more time. And by the time Denver's able to get a hat on Ray Rice, it's happening in the end zone. And there's a little mile-high salute in reverse.
Peyton and offensive coordinator Mike McCoy on the sideline. Tucker for the tie. And Baltimore with 14 points off of 2 Peyton Manning turnovers today. And we have our 4th tie of the day at 28. Tomorrow, the NFL on CBS, your home for Super Bowl 47, brings you the AFC Divisional Playoff. Matt Schaub and the Texans, Tom Brady and the Patriots. It all begins with JV, Dan, Coach, Shannon, and Boomer on a special playoff edition of the NFL Today, presented by Southwest Airlines.
You know, you got to keep in mind with Peyton Manning and this Bronco offense, yeah, there's 28 points on the scoreboard, but 14 of those belong to Trindon Holliday. The Denver offense has only scored 2 touchdowns through the first 3 quarters of this game. And I'm telling you right now, if you'd ask John Harbaugh, would he sign up for that? He would say, where? I'll sign it right now. By and large, the Baltimore defense is doing its job.
Peyton Manning last lost to Baltimore in the 0-1 season, 39-27.
I know one thing. This would be a bouncing knuckleball kickoff. I don't think I'd give Trindon Holliday a real opportunity to bring this thing back. I would drive this baby low and bounce, and maybe get one of the up guys have to handle it.
The first in NFL history with a punt return and a kickoff return for a touchdown in the same postseason game.
And there it goes.
Ground ball short. Bouncing at the 15. Picked off at the 15 by Lance Ball. And he returns it across the 25 to about the 27-yard line.
I think Trindon Holliday has seen his last returnable kickoff, unless he wants to come up and field one of those bouncing balls. That's just smart football. You don't. He's just too hot. Well, again, this Denver offense needs to get a little continuity, and whether Peyton Manning's going to hurry it up, whatever they're going to do, it's been a little herky-jerky here in the second half. And again, no Sean Moreno. That's a big loss.
Marty Hillman in the backfield. Hillman with the handoff. And that will probably do it for the third quarter. It's like 2 heavyweights going at it, and this team led by Peyton Manning on one side, Ray Lewis on the other. We've come to the end of 3 in this battle for the chance to move to the AFC Championship. We're tied at 28, and we're back after this message and a word from your local station. Along with our producer, Mark Wolf, our director, Bob Fishman, Greg Gumbel, Dan Deerdorf, Solomon Wilcots, and the rest of our terrific CBS Sports crew, the 2 great warriors we talked about at the start of the day. They have weighed to battle royal. 2nd and 7 for the Broncos.
Hurry!
Manning throwing out to this side of the field. That's complete and out of bounds at the 32-yard line. Joel Dreesen.
Again, Donnell Ellerby right with him in his hip pocket, and another third down conversion for Denver coming up here. And this is, given the fact that their confidence level can't be all that high right now, that they're in need of a first down here. I mean, if they could do a 3 and out, Old Mo is clearly riding on the Ravens' shoulder.
Hurry!
Manning throwing on 3rd and 4, pulls it down and goes down.
Terrell Suggs going to get the sack. If Peyton Manning pulled that thing down, he found nowhere to go with the football. Nowhere. know, initially he's got time to survey the field. He cocks it, can't find anywhere to go with it. Here's Eric Decker working on the Kerry Williams. Absolutely no separation whatsoever. Man, Baltimore's defense is getting it done.
And Jacoby Jones looking for a chance to return from the 19. Diving across the 30 to about the 33-yard line. 13:46 to play in regulation. Sizzling on a full day.
Welcome back to Denver, Colorado. A little CBS Eye Vision right here. Torrey Smith at the top of your screen. No safety help. The safeties are committed to the middle of the field. That's by design. Champ Bailey, they figure, can handle things on his own, and that has not been the case so far. Champ Bailey has had his hands full with Torrey Smith.
Champ Bailey on Torrey Smith at the top of your screen on first down. Rice showing a little patience just across the 35-yard line.
There's Terrell Suggs sitting on the old, putting a Gatorade cooler to good use.
Dan, it's worth repeating. Neither team thought that the game played a month ago had any bearing on today.
No. Baltimore basically played that game with one arm behind their back, as many injured people as they have.
Second and 7, Flacco rolling, throwing, and that's complete, but not for very much at all. Devontae Leach fights his way for a couple. Monday, Dave goes one-on-one with our own Phil Simms, plus Charlie Sheen, and later this week, Kim and Kourtney Kardashian all do. Dave, only CBS. 3rd and 6. The slant almost pulled in. Anquan Boldin couldn't make a catch at midfield, incomplete.
Oh, that really was a thing of beauty. How close was Anquan Boldin into just snatching this football out of midair with one hand? Joe Flacco really drives it just a little too far out in front of Boldin, and he almost pulls it in.
Trendon Holiday back at his own 17-yard line. Sam Cook. It's a returnable kick. Holiday back to his 5. Takes a look at the landscape and doesn't get very far at all. We are tied at 28. All kinds of time left on the clock. 12:09 to play in the 4th.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by IBM. Let's build a smarter planet. Visit IBM.com/smarterplanet. The all-new Dodge Dart. Dodge. New rules. And by Verizon. Powerful answers.
.12:09 to play in the 4th. It has been a different Peyton Manning here in the second half so far.
He's got to try to find Demaryius Thomas. Thomas just hasn't been a part of this game. There he is at the bottom of your screen.
Play fake, Manning throwing, and that's complete. Out across the 20 to the 23-yard line is Ronnie Hillman.
Again, the receivers drive everybody deep, and that frees it up after the play-action pass. Ray Lewis trying to run with Ronnie Hillman, but that's asking an awful lot of the 37-year-old Lewis running with the youngster Ronnie Hillman. As Greg told you earlier, the youngest player in the NFL.
With that game, only 43 total yards for Denver here in the second half. Well, after that total here, knocked out of bounds is Joel Treason, just short of the 30-yard line.
And this would be, Manning should hurry it up. Get this offense moving at a brisker pace. Yeah, they always go no huddle, but I'd be trying to snap this ball a little quicker.
Green 7.
Try to tire this defense out.
Hot. 32's Mike.
to have enough for a first down at about the 33.5. Joe Flacco awaits his turn. That's a Denver first down. And Lance Ball comes into the backfield to give Ronnie Hillman a little rest.
Bring seven! Bring seven! Hut! Two and fight! Watch!
We'll see how this works out from a pass protection standpoint.
Here they come, and Manning had to get rid of it in a hurry.
Yeah, and my point is that Lance Ball or Ronnie Hillman, none of them are the pass protectors that Knowshon Moreno is. And there's a good example right there. Lance Ball is going to jump to the outside. All he does is run into his left tackle, Ryan Clady, and allows Corey Graham to come right up the middle on Peyton Manning. I'm telling you, the loss of Knowshon Moreno just isn't in the run game. It's going to be in the pass protection aspect of things as well.
In the fourth quarters of games this season, Peyton Manning, 9 touchdown passes, no interceptions. Manning with time this time and throwing, and the catch is made close to the 45-yard line by Dreesen, and a late flag. Shockey Brown made that hit. Kind of get the feeling they'll call this defenseless.
Well, you could hear it all the way up here, which leads you to believe it was helmet to helmet.
Personal foul. Hit on a defensive receiver. Defense number 23. 15-yard penalty from the end of the run. Automatic first down.
Well, there's Dreesen making the catch. And I guess they're going to say that Shockey Brown comes in. And yes, with the crown of his helmet, he hits Dreesen right in the face mask. No question about that. He led with the helmet, and the crown of his helmet caught the receiver right in the face.
Now the Broncos at the Baltimore 40.
Boy, this was after a great Sam Cook punt. Pinned Denver way back there. This is a good drive.
Hillman straight ahead. Again, Hillman getting the majority of the work now that Knowshon Moreno has been sidelined with a knee injury. And Hillman, not the biggest back in the world at 5'10", 190. He's a third-round draft pick out of San Diego State.
Remember last week in the playoff game, Bernard Pollard got called for that same thing. That extended an Indianapolis drive.
Bring seven! Hut! 52 is Mike!
You hear Peyton Manning calling out the mic. Of course, that's Ray Lewis.
Short pass inside the 35 to Matthew Willis. Matthew Willis, his first catch, I believe, first catch of the day.
And again, Peyton Manning, so content, so patient to just complete all these 3- and 4-yard passes. I don't know there are many quarterbacks that have ever played the game. And again, we're getting hand signals out to his receivers, but are willing to just take it in short chunks, like Peyton Manning is willing to do.
Willis was the 9th different receiver hit by Manning today. Now a big third down defensively for the Ravens.
The wind chill right now, -3. Negative number.
Manning looking left, throw, incomplete, and a late flag comes in.
John Harbaugh is speechless. Kerry Williams, the defender in the vicinity of the Demaryius Thomas.
Prior to the pass. Holding. Defense number 29. 5-yard penalty. Automatic first down.
All right, so they're calling this defensive holding prior to the ball being thrown. Yeah, you can't keep your hand on his shoulder pad and ride him all the way down the field like that. That's just an invitation to be called for holding. It had nothing to do with after the ball was thrown. You just got to get your hands off the receiver. You got 5 yards. Now, I didn't see him yank him. You didn't see his body move, but you're just inviting that flag.
First first down, just inside the 30.
Wisconsin! Under. Wisconsin! Omaha!
This is going to get hard and down to the 25. Let's go back to that pass play again.
Yeah, look at it again. Right here, he's got his right arm on the shoulder, the hand. Even if he didn't yank him, even if he doesn't jerk him, even if you don't see Thomas's upper body react to it, you're riding a guy like that is just please throw the flag.
Two, Mike! Hurry!
Manning on 2nd and 7. Throwing over the middle, and that's Decker. And Decker spinning inside the 20 for a first down at the 17, and now you begin to wonder if things are beginning to pile up on that Baltimore defense that may be getting a little tired.
Yeah, first of all, this is just good open field running by Decker, making people miss. He got Kerry Williams right there to stutter step, but you're right. This is a short week, a long way, 5,280 feet, 7 minutes left in the ball game. This is where Baltimore has to fight through this. They have somehow got to find a reserve and find the energy to close off this drive. They've got to be hurting. They have got to be tired.
Manning throwing to this side. That's complete to Thomas. Thomas to the 5, to the end zone. Touchdown.
Keep in mind, that was the 68th play that Denver has run in this game, and Baltimore has run only 44. And the fatigue started to show on the Baltimore defense. Missed tackles rear their ugly head when fatigue sets in. Here comes Ray Lewis, and he just can't get to Demaryius Thomas. Thomas, a quiet ball game up to this point.
Denver, 3 red zone trips, 3 touchdowns today. The 10th time this year Manning has thrown 3 touchdown passes in a game. The extra point is good. 7-11 to play.
And granted, only the 3rd offensive touchdown scored by the Denver Broncos, but boy, was it timely.
The emotions have been like this all day long at Sports Authority Field at Mile High. And the Broncos fans have their heroes on top 35-28 with 7:11 to play in regulation.
Well, an 88-yard drive. Again, it looked like Baltimore had Denver pinned back there. That was a really good punt by Sam Cook. But that really was the first time where the Baltimore defense looked a little gassed. They were struggling to get to the ball. And again, time of possession. Denver's had the ball for nearly 10 minutes longer. They have run 24 more plays than Baltimore.
Now, there's Jacoby Jones. Keep in mind, during the regular season, he returned 2 kickoffs for a touchdown, 1 punt for a touchdown. Jones on the run at the 10. Across the 20 and out to the 25-yard line. And 7:06 to play. An injured Raven on the field. We'll check on him when we come back. 1 touchdown game.
The NFL on CBS is sponsored by Liberty Mutual Insurance. Responsibility. What's your policy? And by Subway. Subway catering is fresh, easy, and affordable. Visit subwaycatering.com.
This is the scene here in Denver, courtesy of our nationwide insurance action can. The temperature is 8 degrees. Flacco gives to Ray Rice, and Rice straight ahead. Let's check in with Solomon Wilcott. Solly?
Well, guys, the energy down here on the field is rocking, but most of it rests with the Denver Broncos. As I take a look at the Baltimore Ravens, especially their defense, it seems like the heart is willing, but the body just isn't able. They come into the season at the oldest active roster in the NFL. Now it's up to the young guys, Flacco, Rice, some of the young guys on offense to lift this football team.
Rice, again, nothing there. Now Flacco's going to have to go to the air. The passing game in the second half hasn't been much to talk about for the Baltimore Ravens. Flacco just 2 out of 3 for 8 yards in the second half.
Well, I have no problem with letting Ray Rice run the ball on first and second down. He's been having success with the ground game. They just couldn't get it blocked. Nothing wrong with that play call.
Baltimore 3 for 9 on third down. Play clock 2, 1, and they get the snap off. Flacco throwing over the middle, wide open is Bolden. Bolden to the 45, to the 47, and a first down.
Well, that's a mistake, obviously, by the Denver secondary as they just release Anquan Bolden. Mike Adams, the safety, is way up. There was some confusion there between Bailey. It's impossible to identify whose fault that was. But geez, talk about turning a guy loose.
Baltimore's first down here in the fourth quarter. Flacco throwing. Oh, what a catch inside the 40-yard line by Bolden.
And go to your money receiver, and I know Torrey Smith had the big first half, but Anquan Bolden is just money. This guy, so physical, so clutch. And Von Miller is on his hands and knees.
And that stops the clock with 4:53 to play here in regulation.
Von Miller looked like he had some sort of a muscle spasm. He's come out of the game. They stretched him out a little bit. It happens right after he makes contact with Joe Flacco. He looks fine, and then all of a sudden he clutched at his lower back. I would expect that he's going to be back out on the field pretty quickly.
The 2011 NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, DJ Williams, replaces him on the field.
And that used to be DJ Williams' job until he lost it to Wesley Woodyard.
And movement up front, that was Kelechi Osemele.
False start. Offense number 72. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
Right tackle most of the season, just recently shifted to left guard, and he jumped too soon.
And I think he's a natural guard the way he plays with such power. And I don't recall the Ravens having another false start today. They've handled this crowd noise pretty well up to that point.
First and 15.
Torrey Smith there at the bottom.
Give us to Rice, and Rice inside the 40 to the 38. A reminder, coming up, the Subway postgame show. JB, Dan Shannon, Boomer, Coach Cowher will recap this game, have all the latest playoff news and information, and a special appearance by Subway's own Jared. It's all coming up on the Subway postgame show.
And there's Miller back out there. You know, the Ravens have been establishing Ray Rice here on the running game, a little play action involving Rice. Might have some success. Even got Leach out on the field.
Torrey Smith in motion to the top of your screen. Rice again. Rice with running room, breaking outside. And out of bounds at about the 30-yard line. That's about 4 yards short of a first down.
Boy, he's got Torrey Smith out there trying to make a block. If Smith could have made a more effective block, he's out here trying to block Chris Harris. And Harris, while he didn't make the tackle, at least disrupted. Here's the attempted block by Torrey Smith. Harris does a good job fighting back to the outside. He can't bring Rice down, but he at least slowed it until Bailey could get there.
3rd and 5. Jones. And on 4th and 5, you would think Baltimore has to go for it, Dan.
Well, they don't have to, but I think they will.
I'm not sure you want to give the football back to Peyton Manning.
You do have all 3 of your timeouts, but boy, this would be a lot easier decision for John Harbaugh if it was 4th and 2 or less. But I don't, given the circumstances, they're going to go for it.
Flacco's got to look at the play clock. It's down to 4. To 1.
They didn't get it off. They did not get it off. Delay a game. Did they get a timeout called first?
Prior to the snap, first charge timeout, Baltimore. 30-second timeout.
I think John Harbaugh called it from the sideline, and he saved Joe Flacco because Flacco did not realize he was out of time. Look up there. There's John Harbaugh there at the very top. You see him right up there. He just flashed the timeout to the official, and he did get it in.
But depending on what happens with this next play, that could be a game saver.
Yeah, Flacco was unaware that he was out of time.
So what's working now for Baltimore at this stage of the game?
The money guy for me is Anquan Bolden or Dennis Pitta. Those are the 2 guys that Joe Flacco has the most confidence in. Now, on big 4th down conversions, a dump off to Ray Rice has paid benefits for Baltimore before. So he's got options here.
Dennis Pitta has just 2 catches for 31 yards today. He had 2 touchdown catches a month ago in the loss to the Broncos out in Baltimore. 4th and 5.
I wouldn't be afraid to put Flacco on the move either, trying to get outside.
Flacco throwing, diving, incomplete at the 25-yard line. Pitta, the intended receiver, covered by Mike Adams. The ball goes over to Denver.
And right now, Baltimore is going to be in a position where they're going to want to stop the clock with timeouts, and they just had to burn one of them. They had to burn one, so they're down to 2, and Joe put the ball, he did put the ball right onto the hands of Dennis Pitta, and that was just outstanding coverage by Mike Adams. That is fantastic work by the Denver strong safety, reaching in with the left arm and getting the hand on the football. That you could put that on a training reel for kids on how to make a play in the secondary.
Ray Lewis, is this his last stand?
Can he will his guys to force a Denver punt?
Gilbert, running room across the 35. Ray Lewis with the tackle. Clock continues to move, coming up on 3 minutes to play.
Well, it's the option for Baltimore to use the timeouts now or do you use them later. I know that they were hoping for a lot less yardage to be gained on 1st down.
Ronnie Hillman, 13 carries now for 49 yards on in relief of Noshawn Moreno, who left the game earlier with a knee injury.
Peyton's not going to snap this football until it gets down to a couple seconds.
Hillman again. Hillman with running room. 1st down, Denver.
And again, great blocking by the Bronco offensive line. Power football. They got an extra lineman in the game. And the Baltimore Ravens just unable to make the stop. Chris Clark coming in as a tight end, the backup tackle.
Baltimore uses its 2nd timeout to stop the clock with 2:23 to play.
I know it's a passing league. I know it's all about throwing the football. But there's nothing like being able to run the football when you want to run out the clock and preserve a victory. And that was a monster couple of running plays by the Denver Broncos.
How about the way the rookie Ronnie Hillman has stepped up and is the man to run the football in the absence of Noshawn Moreno.
Well, we got the 2-minute warning coming up. And again, Baltimore down to just one timeout. But this, clock management is all great if you can stop the other team from running the football. And it only took 2 runs that time for Denver to convert a first down and move the sticks. I think you recognize John Elway,
Executive Vice President Football Operations, and has done a terrific job in charge of these Denver Broncos. Hillman again. And Baltimore will use its 3rd and final timeout to stop the clock with 2:17 to play. The only chance they'll get to stop the clock again will be the 2-minute warning.
and they'll get the football back if they can keep the Broncos from getting a first down. Boy, they'd love to have that. They'd love to have that timeout back that they had to burn, that John Harbaugh had to use when they couldn't get the playoff in time. So this 3rd down will take us to the 2-minute warning. So there is a window here for the Ravens, but it involves a first down by the Denver Broncos, and they can kiss this thing goodbye.
If this is Ray Lewis's swan song, 14 tackles so far today.
And again, 2 special teams touchdowns have propelled the Denver Broncos into the lead that they have. They've only given up 3 offensive touchdowns. If Baltimore can force a Denver punt, this is going to get really exciting.
Woo, 20. Hut. 52's back, Apple. Hurry. Set. Check Gamble.
There's a lot of Broncos close to the line of scrimmage, as you can see.
Hurry.
I mean, a lot of Ravens, rather.
Hillman pulled down at the 47-yard line, and that will take us to the 2-minute warning. And here is that 3rd down stand that the Ravens need if they have any hope of extending their season. It'll be 3rd and 7 when we come back to Denver. 2 minutes to play, 35-28 Broncos. Dan, conventional wisdom says you run the football, but who says Peyton's conventional? But no, he does run it. And they're going to kick it away.
Well, I really thought they'd let Peyton Manning put the ball in the air. He is so good at the intermediate, short kind of patterns, the high probability of a completion, and John Harbaugh is thrilled with what his defense just pulled off. Yeah, granted, they let Denver get 1 first down, and that cost them their timeouts and some field position, but I would have let Peyton Manning put the ball in the air.
Denver just got real conservative. Clock is moving, minute 25.
Well, I think John Fox has a lot of faith in his defense.
And we'll get a timeout called by Denver. They use the first of their 3 to stop the clock with a minute 15
Well,
to play.
John Fox has watched his defense get it done all season long. And I guess he's just, as an old defensive coach, he's saying to himself, you know what, I'll take the time and on my side, and I'll count on my guys to get it done. Now, Baltimore, unless there's some sort of a spectacular return here, is going to have to traverse a long way in a short period of time. But let's be realistic. They have shown that they've had the ability to do that with Joe Flacco going downfield. There's not a quarterback in the league with a stronger arm than Flacco, and Torrey Smith has been finding some holes down deep.
Britton Colquitt has punted 268 times in his career, never had one blocked.
Saw Champ Bailey there, Greg. You know that he knows that they're going to try.
This one up high. Kobe Jones with the fair catch call and made at the 23-yard line. 1:09 on the clock. Baltimore with no timeouts and it's all on number 5's shoulders.
Well, you've got to be able to use the middle of the field somewhat. But again, you just can't get into a situation where you think you're going to do this by dumping the ball off and picking it up 3 and 4 yards at a time. You're going to have to stretch this team. You're going to have to go vertical a little bit.
And if you are in the middle of the field, you have to go hurry up.
Torrey Smith down here at the bottom.
Flacco, his receiver slipped and fell at the 35-yard line. That was Pitta.
No, and you're right. Dennis Pitta working against Mike Adams, and he did slip. Joe was throwing to a spot, and Pitta wasn't there because he slipped and fell. Right there, he does a double move, and when he turns upfield, he just gets tangled up and goes down.
2nd and 10, 65 seconds to play.
Chan Bailey at the bottom of your screen on Torrey Smith.
Flacco going to run it out of there and brought down at the 30-yard line. Clock continues to move.
Von Miller chases him down. And boy, look at him go around Michael Orr and then come back up. Now Joe Flacco can run. He's got great speed, but that's not going to get it done.
Flacco stepping up and throwing deep down the far sideline. Caught! Into the end zone! Touchdown, Jacoby Jones! How does that happen in the Denver secondary?
That is stunning. That with a 3-man rush and dropping 8 guys into coverage, that the Denver Broncos could misplay this to this point. Only a 3-man rush. Flacco steps up and unloads a deep ball. And again, I don't understand. Tony Carter has got the short coverage. How do you let the guys get deep? Raheem Moore, number 26, he's late coming. It's just amazing. Amazing.
The all-important extra point to tie the game.
Moore jumped up to try to block that thing and just totally mistimed his jump, but still, he's got to be deeper than that.
We're tied again. Jacoby Jones, his first catch of the day is a dandy.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, take a look at Carter. He's playing the short underneath, and it's a stutter and go. But Raheem Moore's got to be deeper than that. That's his play. That's his responsibility, the deep outside like that. I mean, that is just, that's unthinkable that a safety could misplay that to that extent in this situation with this amount of time left in a football game. I mean, Raheem Moore, he'll be kicking himself for a long time, and I'm sure that Jacoby Jones could not believe his good fortune that he was that alone in this, given the fact that we're inside a minute left in a game with a team with no timeouts.
Torrey Smith scored a touchdown with 36 seconds to go at the end of the first half. Jacoby Jones scores with 31 seconds to play in regulation. Ray Lewis gets new life. The Ravens get new life.
Well, we've got to have here comes another knuckleball, I would assume. You don't give Trenton Holiday an opportunity to go into the Bronco record books any more than he already is.
Run this one back, and we'll start from the 20-yard line. Let's go back to the touchdown.
Well, I think it starts with Moore. Raheem Moore is right over here. I think he's got to initially be lined up, but he's got this deep outside, and he just doesn't get there. First of all, he's too concentrated on the inside. And then when he makes his break deep, he just didn't realize how much space he had to defend and took a really horrible angle.
And by the way, Joe Flacco has one strong arm, doesn't he?
Yes, he does, but deep outside is deep outside, and you got to get there.
Manning with 2 timeouts, going to take a knee. Crowd doesn't like it, but they're going to take their chances in overtime. For the 5th time today, this game is tied and will be decided in extra session.
Am I the only one scratching my head here a little bit? 2 timeouts left for Denver. Peyton Manning at the quarterback position, and you don't at least give it a whirl?
We have come to the end of regulation. Denver 35, Baltimore 35. A month ago, the Broncos ran roughshod over an injured Baltimore team. Not today.
Well, Joe Flacco is averaging almost 20 yards of completion in this game. He's got 15 completed passes for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns. He has lit up this vaunted secondary of the Denver Broncos.
Excellent job so far. You guys are aware of the overtime rules. Both teams will have an opportunity to possess unless the first team scores a touchdown. The only difference is that we're starting a new game. Do we understand that? Just like the first quarter, we'll go to the 2-minute warning in the second quarter. Right? The only difference, all replays are upstairs. Okay, Baltimore, you're still the visitors. What is your call? He is called heads. It is heads. Which one do you want to kick? Flip it around. Baltimore has won the top.
As they have done all day, Ray Lewis and Peyton Manning facing off at midfield. Heads it is. Joe Flacco, another Saturday night. We're going to overtime. Last year, the AFC wildcard game, Denver's Tim Tebow to Demaryius Thomas in overtime, and that is how the Broncos beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. The coin toss has already decided the possession, unlimited 15-minute quarters. Both teams possess the ball once unless a touchdown scored on the first possession. And after each team's first possession, then the next score wins the game, each team with 3 timeouts.
And again, there are no coaches' challenges in overtime. It's just like inside the 2-minute warning. It's all done upstairs.
Jacoby Jones will not return this when it goes out of the end zone, and Baltimore will start from their own 20-yard line. It is snowing on the field, and the temperature is about 6 degrees.
Well, right now, the confidence level of this Denver secondary, it can't be very high. I mean, they're not even in the same zip code with the word confidence.
Joe Flacco has shown big strike capability. From the 20, Torrey Smith to the top of your screen. For 2. Derek Wolfe, DJ Williams in on the stop.
That puts Ray Rice over 100 yards on the day, but we've got an injury. Kevin Vickerson is down. He is down and not moving.
We'll check on him. We'll take a break. 14:45 in overtime. If Denver wins, the Broncos host the AFC Championship game next week. If Baltimore wins, the Ravens travel to either Houston or New England for the AFC Championship. Kevin Vickerson able to walk off the field. He's been replaced by Mitch Unrein. 2nd and 8 for Baltimore. What a game.
I'll say, you got that right.
Throwing, tip incomplete, off the fingertips of his intended receiver, Torrey Smith. It'll be 3rd and 8.
Remember, both teams get the opportunity to possess the ball in overtime unless the Ravens were to score a touchdown on this drive, and that is very dangerous when a ball like that gets tipped, goes through the hands, and goes up into the air. We saw one of those earlier, and it ended up as a Raven touchdown.
Throwing this side and caught across the 30-yard line. Is that completion or no? They're looking.
It looked like a completion to me.
It is ruled a completion at the 32-yard line. Anquan Bolden.
Will Anquan Bolden contest a catch and fight for the football? I mean, look at that. Again, Wesley Woodyard has his hand on the football, and they're going to look at this upstairs again.
Because that ball appeared to touch the ground.
A great job by Bolden of fighting Woodyard for the ball.
Previous play is under review.
But keep in mind, he's got to land out of bounds with firm control of the ball.
They'll take a look at it upstairs automatically, whether or not this is a catch or not.
Welcome back, everybody. What referee Bill Vinovich is going to be looking at is Anquan Bolden here as he goes to the ground. The ball is going to hit the ground, and it's going to, and the question is that going to aid him in the catch? The ball's on, the ball can touch the ground if you have firm control of the ball, but I'm not sure that's the case with Anquan Bolden.
What do you think this is? I think it's an incompletion.
I think it's going to be ruled incomplete. I think the ground aided him in making the reception. Right there, you see the ball moved. It looked like it even separated from his hand on that last look. I mean, a tremendous job by both Woodyard and Bolden going after that football.
This, I think, will be Vinovich's definitive look.
There's no question that Bolden loses control of the football. The only question is, does he regain firm control of it before he goes to the ground? I think it just looks to me like if he regained control of that ball before he hits the ground, they'll give it to him.
After reviewing the play, ruling on the field stands, the receiver had the ball pinned when he went to the ground.
I mean, these are extremely close calls. And again, that's a call I think that could have gone either way.
Anquan Bolden now 6 catches for 70 yards on the day, and Baltimore has now converted 4 of its last 5 third downs.
Everybody's got a different opinion. I mean, it just looked to me like the ground aided Anquan Bolden in making that catch.
I agree with you. First down from the 33. Rice across the 35 to the 36. Hard fought start to finish, and we aren't finished yet. That man doesn't want to be finished.
Oh, but that was a rather large play for the Baltimore Ravens. I'm telling you, Anquan Bolden will fight you for the football. Man, he's a competitor.
Rice again. And again, Flacco is going to be looking at about a 3rd and 5 or so.
Well, the good news is that the Baltimore defense has had a little time to gather themselves and maybe get a little bit of rest. Again, this is a football team. Denver's run 74 plays. The Ravens have run 60.
Baltimore's been good on 3rd down lately, 3rd and 4.
Yeah, considering how long they went without even converting one.
Throwing, tipped away, incomplete.
Pass interference. Defense number 24.
Champ Bailey.
Flat foul. Automatic first down.
All right, here's Champ Bailey down at the bottom on Torrey Smith. From that angle, you certainly can't see it. He had his hand on his back, but that's perfectly legal as long as you don't shove him with it.
He didn't, nor did he turn him.
No, he didn't. I didn't see it.
Nevertheless, first down Baltimore at their own 48. And we get a timeout called by Denver. So Denver uses its first timeout of this extra session.
Well, Denver's defense was confused. And again, if you in any way, given the fact that they've given up so many big plays in this game, if you have any hesitancy at all about whether or not you're in the right coverage at the right time, go ahead and take the timeout. I mean, you can't afford a mistake. A mistake here that gives Baltimore a touchdown ends the football game.
Now, Dan, in this overtime session, Baltimore's become pretty predictable. Run Ray Rice twice. If you don't have the first down, you throw it. They've done that a couple of times already.
Which means that'd be a good time to set up some play action, especially here on first down.
And especially the way Joe Flacco has thrown the ball today.
And he got Ray Rice. He's already at 107 yards. So Jim Caldwell has shown that he's not hesitant to really hammer the ball in with Ray Rice. He's got 22 carries.
Number 52 doesn't want it to end here today. Nor does number 18.
And again, you know, the number 1 seed, the Denver Broncos, is fighting for their life. And they were a huge favorite in this game. They were a prohibitive favorite in this game. And almost everyone predicted a relatively routine Denver win.
Rice in the backfield behind Flacco on first down. And again, it's Rice.
Well, I just think they're ripe for a little play action.
For a yard.
They've just been very predictable with Ray Rice getting the football on first down.
That loss by the Ravens to Denver in Baltimore was Jim Caldwell's first game as offensive coordinator.
Yeah, they fired Cam Cameron the previous Monday.
2nd and 9. Flacco throwing, and inside the 45 to the 44 is Jacoby Jones.
Well, again, look at the cushion that Jones is getting here by Tony Carter. And that, you just got to take that.
3rd and 2.
Well, here's where either a run or a pass works for you. You could go either way here on 3rd and 2. Denver's got 8 guys up at the line, though.
Rice out on the pass pattern. Flacco running out of time, and he goes down. Von Miller, Elvis Dumervil on the first sack of the day of Joe Flacco.
And that's just a classic coverage sack. Joe Flacco, you look at his receivers downfield, you can see it perfectly there from behind. Nobody had any separation whatsoever. You know, initially a great job of blocking Michael Orr on Von Miller. But Joe Flacco just had to eat that. Not one of his receivers got any separation at all.
Jim Leonard back for the punt. Cook hangs it up. And Leonard with a fair catch at the 15-yard line. So Peyton Manning in the offense, as you take a look at Matt Prater. Both these kickers were kicking 50-yard field goals in both directions before the start of this game.
Well, that's a pretty routine procedure
in Denver.
Here in the Mile High City, yeah. Well, ultimately, the Denver defense got it done, and that time the secondary stepped up, and Joe Flacco had absolutely nowhere to go with that football. And wisely, he didn't force the situation. And now that Baltimore, we're getting an announcement here. Yeah, Baltimore's had their possession, and now that Denver possesses the football, we are truly now in sudden death.
And the next score wins the game. Manning from the shotgun. Manning, quick pass over the middle, tipped incomplete. Intended for Ronnie Hillman. Peyton Manning with 48 career fourth quarter or overtime game-winning drives.
Well, Peyton's under duress throwing this. As you can see, Paul Kruger's got him by the jersey and driving him backwards. Paul Kruger, the best of Baltimore's pass rushers, forced that incompletion.
This is Hillman changing direction, breaking it to the near side. Out across the 20 to about the 21-yard line. Corey Graham coming up to make the stop.
And again, no Sean Moreno, who started this game at running back for Denver. We haven't seen him here in the second half as he's been forced to the sideline. And the rookie Ronnie Hillman, Jacob Hester, and Lance Ball have all been taking turns in the Denver backfield. Hester's the guy now. And he's the best pass blocker of that trio.
Manning with a 3rd and 5. Good protection. Outside, diving grab at the 30-yard line. Yes, to Brandon Stokely.
Oh, talk about having to come back for the football. That ball from Manning looked like it wasn't going to get there. And Stokely, he has to come back and dive for that. And at that angle right there, it looked like he kept it off the ground.
Hillman. And we get a whistle.
Well, it might have been buzzed from upstairs prior to the snap.
The previous play was under review. The page came before the snap.
Peyton had the right idea, didn't he?
Yeah, he had the right idea, and the official upstairs in the replay booth buzzed down. From that angle, it looks like a catch. Let's take a look at it from here. He's got the right hand under the football. And Stokely looks like we'll keep checking it. We've got lots of angles.
Now Bill Vinovich is going to need to see the ball hit the ground to overturn this. And I didn't see it touch the ground.
No, I think Brandon Stokely, that ball is just dying and headed for the ground. And look at him get his left forearm and hand underneath that football. See, you can't see the football there, so Vinovich can see nothing in that angle to overturn it. But I got to tell you, every time I think Vinovich is going to go one way, he seems to go the other. That looked like a legitimate catch, though, to me, by Brandon Stokely.
I agree with you. The snow continuing to fall here in Denver.
It just looks like he's got the left hand and the left forearm underneath the football, and that's a pretty good look at it right there. And I do not see the football touch the turf.
So Vinovich continues to look. Meanwhile, Brandon Stokely, who used to be a member of these Baltimore Ravens.
He started his career in Baltimore, spent 4 years with the Ravens.
4th round pick in '99.
The play. The ruling on the field confirmed. The receiver underneath the ball did not hit the ground. First down.
Well, confirmed means that he did see enough evidence to say that it was a catch, and that's exactly what we saw. Now that could have been a lot easier of a completion, except Peyton, that ball just came out of Peyton's hand with almost nothing on it at all.
Once again, we are now at that stage
Push,
of overtime. The next score wins the game. Hillman running room across the 35, out to about the 38, and a couple of yards short of a first down. Donnell Ellerby with the stop.
I'll say this about Ronnie Hillman as a rookie. He sure understands what a turnover would do to his football team. He's doing a really good job of covering up that football. You know the Ravens are coming after it. He's got 19 carries for 73 yards. He didn't see this kind of a workload coming.
Level. 52 Spike. Got it. Omaha. Set. Mags Young. Yeah. Mags Young. Mags Young. Hurry, set.
Hillman again. Dragged down short of the 40-yard line. It'll be a 3rd and 1.
Well, he had to jump to avoid Donnell Ellerby, who was in the Denver backfield.
Mr. Ellerby has played a whale of a football game today.
He's a heck of a football player, and you're right, he has played really well. But he looks like he's either having a muscle spasm or he's gasping for air, which is in precious little supply here. 79 plays up to this point by the Broncos.
This is Jacob Hester looking for the first down, and he didn't get there.
Not sure he did much more than get back to the line of scrimmage.
And John Fox is going to bring the punting unit on.
Oh, he can't go for it inside his own 40-yard line.
Britton Colquitt comes out.
You just, especially, what is he supposed to feel confident about their ability to run for it on short yardage? They barely got back to the line of scrimmage on that play. You got a feeling that this game's going to come down to somebody making a mistake.
That is Ed Reed back at his own 20-yard line.
One of the best open field runners in football with great hands.
Hanging it up. Reed drifting back, pulls it in, and is dropped at the 5-yard line. Tony Carter with the special teams play. Let's get an update from New York. JB, all yours.
Greg, we knew the pressure would be big on Colin Kaepernick.
Well, here you go, an ill-advised throw by the young quarterback as he drifts to his left, leaves the pocket, and who's out there? Sam Shields. This is going to be returned 52 yards for an interception return for a touchdown. 7-0. Green Bay goes on the board first, and that playoff came out in San Francisco.
Back to Mile High, Greg and Dan.
Plenty of time to be played in that game, Dan, but you and I really like the way the Green Bay Packers are looking this time of year.
I'm sure Ed Reed handled that ball inside the 10-yard line because he couldn't believe that Carter was going to be able to bring him down. That's the kind of confidence he has. But that end zone looks a long way away when you're only at the 6.
Rice.
Nowhere. Awfully predictable with running Ray Rice on first down. That is, I know you don't, it's, again, look at the field position, but that has become a real staple on first down. Just a handoff to Ray Rice.
Offensive coordinator Jim Caldwell upstairs, talking about 2nd and 10. Rolling to his left, throwing it down the sideline. Is he inbounds? It is not. It's out of bounds.
No, Mike Adams was well out of bounds.
That was close to being a game ender.
I don't think Adams got either foot in bounds. No, he didn't. They were both out.
Because if that is inbounds, then you are already in Matt Prater's field goal range. 3rd and 10.
Well, here's where the pressure really lands right on the offensive line of Baltimore. Von Miller's inside.
Play clock down to 1. He didn't get it off. He did not get that play off in time.
Delay game. Offense number 5. Half distance to the goal. still third down.
That is not the first time today.
Well, you can see his offensive line. They're busy trying to figure out the protection scheme. Matt Burke is pointing. They're identifying who the rushers are and whatnot. And that whole process took way too long.
3rd and 13.
You got 6 DBs on the field for Denver. There's Von Miller. He's at the top of that Denver line.
Flacco throwing out of his own end zone. They cannot afford a holding penalty here. The pass up the middle. Caught across the 25. Dennis Pitta.
How clutch is that? And how good a throw is that? Up the seam by Joe Flacco. Jim Leonard doesn't know where the football is. Straight up the seam by Dennis Pitta. And what a beautiful touch pass by Joe Flacco. Right between the DBs. Tony Carter's too deep to come in and make a play. Perfect throw by Flacco.
Rice back onto the field. Rice on first down. Across the 30 to about the 33.
And good, and that time a very good first down run by Ray Rice.
Justin Tucker has a season-long 56-yard field goal.
And he's just had an extraordinary rookie season for the Baltimore Ravens.
5 minutes remaining in this first overtime session. Rice again. Nothing there.
Well, a little bit of a crease was there on first down, but not much of anything there on second down. And again, Ray Rice he's having to dig deep right now. He's been worked hard.
26 carries for 115 yards on the day for number 27. Next score wins here in Denver.
Regardless of when it comes, keep in mind, we'll play multiple overtime periods until there's a winner.
Flacco on 3rd and 3, throwing, batted down.
That was almost, and I mean almost, intercepted.
Chris Harris with the diving block.
He looked like he had both hands on that ball. It would have been an unbelievable interception. Oh, he came close.
Trendon Holiday is deep.
I'd be aiming for the sideline again if I'm Sam Cook. No driving punt down the middle of the field.
Holiday with a chance to return it from the 13. Can't get away from the special teams play. Made down there by Jimmy Smith.
Well, Jimmy Smith used to be the starting corner on this team, a #1 draft pick, playing special teams mostly now, and what a tackle he just made on Trendon Holiday. That was big time, and now it's Denver backed up to their own goal line. What a dramatic change in field position on the part of the Ravens.
Baltimore started that drive at their own 6, backed up the penalty to the 3.
Well, that seam pass to Dennis Pitta really ended up in a big change of field position, and then that punt and a negative return.
How does Peyton Manning do in the postseason overtime sessions? He's 0-2. Down in the flat, Ronnie Hillman escapes the first tackle. Stayed on his feet, spun it across the 10 to the 12.
Well, this is, check out this move by Hillman, that jump cut, and he comes all the way back in. Gary Williams, he can't believe he didn't come up with the tackle. But that knee didn't touch. He kept himself alive. That was actually a pretty good effort by Williams.
On 2nd and 5, Manning, sideline. Caught by Decker, out of bounds, across the 20, first down, Denver.
Well, this throw from Peyton Manning's got a little something on it. That's a good driving throw, a nice tight spiral. So there's still a little life left in the right arm of number 18.
Set down. Hillman again. Hillman changing direction across the 30 to about the 32 or 33 yard line.
And again, Ronnie Hillman with his young legs is not afraid to change directions, reverse course, go out the back door, and that's a big play waiting to happen. And again, Ronnie Hillman, 21 carries already on this game. He's up to 83 yards. And that was not a workload he was expecting.
Once again, and this time he goes nowhere. He is hit right away by Donnell Ellerby. We duck under 2.5 to play in this first OT.
Yep, and again, Greg just said the first OT. We will keep going until there is a winner, regardless of how many overtime periods it takes.
And we have a stoppage of play on the field. And we're going to get a measurement for a first down.
And keep in mind, this is just like playing a regular game. If the clock expires wherever they are on the field, they'll just flip it like a quarter and move to the other side of the field. But the game just continues. A drive would continue. Just a little bit short.
Baltimore making its first visit to Denver since 2006. This will be memorable however it turns out.
Right now Denver is unsure of which personnel package they want. They had people coming and going. Mike McCoy, their offensive coordinator, they bring in a backup lineman to play tight end, Chris Clark.
Jacob Hester in the backfield, third down specialist.
A lot of beef there on the right side.
Decker in motion. Hester straight ahead. And would appear to have enough for the first down. Let's see where they spot it.
Now Denver pretty much declared themselves. With all the big guys over there on the right side, they said, here we come, see if you can stop it.
First down.
Baltimore came really close to stopping it. And again, Peyton Manning forcing the issue at the line of scrimmage. Let's get this baby moving.
Hurry!
Manning, short pop over the middle, and that's complete across the 35 to the 38. Ronnie Hillman, who's going to sleep really well tonight.
And again, for a young player, he's a bit of a liability when it comes to protecting the quarterback. But other than that, he's given the Broncos a lot of good football here this afternoon.
Wasn't Ronnie Hillman the one who told us he's more afraid of Peyton than
that was he.
than the coach?
That's exactly right.
Hurry!
Manning on 2nd and 6. On the move, throwing across his body, and that is intercepted. Intercepted by Baltimore's Corey Graham.
And that is a mistake that you don't see Peyton Manning make very often. Rolling to his right and throwing back across his body into the middle of the field. Paul Kruger was chasing him. And again, Stokely reverses his field, comes back, but that was just a great piece of work by Graham, not giving up. He shadowed Stokely all over the field. That is not Peyton Manning's strong suit, throwing the football on the move like that, and especially coming back to the middle of the field. That you got to give Corey Graham a lot of credit, though. That was just a tremendous play on his part, and great work by Kruger, putting Manning in a vulnerable spot.
And a tired defense has given the Ravens a chance. 51 seconds to play in this overtime. Flacco back, throwing, that at the line.
Well, there's the change of pace where on first down they go to the air. and it ends up getting batted. I like the play call. It was better than just a handoff to Ray Rice, but now, unfortunately, with the bat, second and long.
Justin Bannon got a hand on it. He spent 4 years with Baltimore from 06 to the 2010 season, 2nd and 10.
Tight ends have hurt Denver all season long.
Rice, running room, inside the 40. Inside the 35, look at the leg drive.
Oh, well, look at the great work by Marshall Yanda. Marshall Yanda he should get an assist for about another 3 yards, because Ray Rice gets stood up, and watch the hustle from the Pro Bowl guard. Look at Yanda come in there and move the pile. Great work by Marshall Yanda. That's good hustle, and that's very, very alert football on his part. Voted his second Pro Bowl this year, and he's another one of those Ravens that didn't play in that game back in December.
We have come to the end of the first overtime period. We will pick it up after a break, but right now, let's take you to James Brown in New York.
Greg, Dan.
We saw Colin Kaepernick earlier out in the Bay Area. He can run.
Yes, he can run. How do you think Jack Harbaugh feels right about now? His one son is, he got his football team going into the second overtime period. His other son is a playoff game with the 49ers going on.
Nice job.
Yeah, the Harbaugh brothers are acquitting themselves pretty darn well.
So we pick up where we left off at the end of the first overtime period. Baltimore getting really, really close. You're wondering about the strength of Justin Tucker's leg. He has a 56-yard field goal, a 54-yard field goal, and 2 from 51 this year. First down, Ravens at the Denver 34.
They threw on first down last time. Let's see what Jim Caldwell has in store now. Ray Rice is blown back.
Rice with the football. To about the 32.
Justin Tucker actually went out on the field during the changeover from one period to the other and kicked the ball.
And Champ Bailey had that. What's up with that?
I don't know that there's any rule against it. Obviously, the officiating crew had no problem with it. I've never seen it before, that's for sure.
Not much there for Ray Rice.
The entire officiating crew watched him do it, so apparently they found no fault with it.
Now, 3rd and 7. Keep in mind, next score wins. If they don't get the first down, what's John Harbaugh going to do?
Well, we'd be looking at about a 49-yarder.
Straight ahead, middle of the field, so it looks like he's setting it up.
Well, here comes the rookie. Kicked a 56-yarder this year.
Justin Tucker was 30 for 33 during the regular season.
And just think about that, 30 for 33. Well, the huge underdog is 1 kick away.
This would send Baltimore to the AFC Championship game.
Does Foxy call a timeout here? I hate to say icing, as cold as it is.
Kick is on its way, and it looks good. The Baltimore Ravens have come into Denver and reached the AFC Championship game for the 2nd straight year, for the 3rd time in 5 years under John Harbaugh.
One of the grittiest wins by a football team that I have seen in a long, long time. What the Ravens had to overcome playing at altitude on a short week on the road against the number 1 seed. Remarkable performance by the Ravens.
Ray Lewis lives to fight another day. His career does not come to an end here in Denver. Solomon.
Oh my gosh. Guys, I'm here with Ray Lewis, and Ray, you told us last night that you believe that you guys could come in here and break the Broncos' 11-game winning streak. What allowed you to believe you could do so?
No weapon formed shall prosper. No weapon. No weapon. No weapon. God is amazing. And when you believe in him, man believes in the possible, God believes in the impossible. And I told you guys last night, our team was so confident that everything went against us, but we found a way to come in here together, and we leave it together. Man, it's just awesome.
You also said that you had to win the chess match, your defense against Peyton Manning, who just came over to embrace you and wish you good luck. How did you guys do it? That last interception by Corey Graham proved to be a big one.
You know what? The funny thing about it is, me and Corey, the last minute, we said we was going to play a certain route, and he had saw something all day, and we kind of switched it right at the end, and it kind of confused him, man, and he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, you know, but for us to come in here and confuse him the way we did and make the plays we did, you know, give up 2 big special teams touchdowns, but the bottom line is we kept fighting through the race.
Yeah, you sure did. And we got to go. Your storied career, it continues, Ray. Thank you very much. Let's get it back up to you guys, Greg.
All right, Solomon, thanks so much. Ray Lewis. That career doesn't come to an end today. In fact, what a plane ride that's going to be on the way back to Baltimore.
Well, keep in mind, 35 points is the most points Baltimore has ever given up in a playoff game, and they win it anyway. And overcoming a punt return for a touchdown, a kickoff return for a touchdown, again, the team just would not give up.
Our final score, in double overtime, Baltimore 38, Denver 35. Up next, the Subway postgame show. For Dan Deerdorf, for Solomon Wilcox, for our terrific crew working in tough conditions, Greg Gumbel, so long from Denver. This is the NFL on CBS.